The woman in black wasn't supposed to exist anymore. 6 weeks ago, she vanished. Poof, gone, written off as fragile, broken, irrelevant. Tonight, she walked back into the ballroom like death dressed in silk, and every camera in the room turned toward her like flowers toward poison. Her husband's champagne glass trembled in his hand, because Damien Vale suddenly understood something that turned his blood to ice. His wife hadn't come back to forgive him. She came back to bury him, and she brought the one man who could help her do it. Stick around. You're about to witness the most calculated revenge in modern history. And when you finish this story, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Serena's story travels. The problem with being invisible is that nobody notices when you finally learn to see in the dark. Serena Vale discovered this truth on a Tuesday afternoon in October while standing barefoot on imported Italian marble, holding a phone that didn't belong to her. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Wintermere Drive mansion, autumn was performing its slow rot, leaves turning copper and gold before dying. Inside, the house smelled like expensive nothing, leather, polish. The faint chemical tang of flowers replaced every 3 days by people Serena never met. She'd found the second phone in Damien's briefcase while searching for aspirin. Funny how betrayal announces itself through such ordinary moments. The screen had unlocked on the third attempt, their wedding anniversary, because men like Damien Vale possessed the imagination of wet concrete. 9 months of messages. Hotel confirmations at places Serena had never been. Promises written in the breathless grammar of new desire. And there, buried in a thread from April, she never notices anything. Serena's decorative. Serena stood there for 17 minutes. She counted. The grandfather clock in the hallway ticked through every second while something vital inside her chest went dark and cold and permanently offline. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She set the phone down exactly where she'd found it, took the aspirin, and went upstairs to shower. The water ran hot enough to hurt. She scrubbed her skin until it burned, and when she stepped out, wrapped in a towel that cost more than most people's rent, Serena looked at herself in the mirror and made a decision that would eventually destroy a man worth $800 million. She would not leave. Not yet. Not until there was nothing left of him to leave behind. 3 days later, Serena Vale attended the Children's Future Foundation luncheon at the Plaza, wearing a cream Valentino dress and a smile that could cut glass. She laughed at the right moments, touched shoulders with practiced warmth, posed for photographs beside women who'd stopped seeing her years ago, who knew her measurements but not her middle name, who could list her charity affiliations but couldn't recall a single thing she'd ever said that wasn't scripted by the role of Damien Vale's wife. Decorative. The word sat in her throat like a stone. Across the ballroom, Margaret Chen was holding court near the champagne fountain, talking about her daughter's acceptance to Yale. Serena had known Margaret for 6 years. They'd co-chaired 4 fundraisers together. Margaret had attended Serena's 30th birthday dinner and sent flowers when Serena's mother died. Margaret looked directly at Serena twice and didn't register her presence either time. That was the moment Serena understood the truth completely. She wasn't invisible because Damien had made her that way. She was invisible because she'd allowed it, and that meant she could unmake herself just as deliberately. The restroom at the Plaza was all white marble and gold fixtures. Serena locked herself in the farthest stall and pulled out her personal phone, the one Damien had never touched, never questioned, because monitoring his wife required acknowledging she existed as something beyond decoration. She typed 4 words into the search bar. Vivian Thorne, divorce attorney. The results loaded immediately. Legendary, ruthless, expensive. The woman who'd dismantled 3 tech billionaires in a pharmaceutical heir without breaking a sweat. The attorney powerful men hired to destroy their rivals and feared when their wives started asking questions. Serena clicked the contact link. The phone rang twice. Thorne Legal. The voice was crisp, professional, utterly unimpressed. I need a consultation, Serena said quietly. My name is Serena Vale. A pause, then, hold please. Elevator music played for exactly 45 seconds. The next voice was different, older, sharp as a blade wrapped in velvet. Mrs. Vale, I'm Vivian Thorne. Are you calling from a secure location? I'm at a charity luncheon. Then you'll need to call me back, landline only. Use a payphone if you can find one. Otherwise, buy a burner. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Serena understood perfectly. This was war, and wars required operational security. Yes. Good. Here's a number you won't find online. Vivian rattled off 10 digits. Call me before Friday. After that, I'm in Milan for 2 weeks, and your husband's attorneys will have already started building his defense, whether he knows it or not. His defense against what? Against you, Mrs. Vale. The moment you walked into that bathroom and searched my name, you stopped being his wife and became his opponent. Men like Damien Vale have protocols in place. They just don't activate them until it's too late. The line went dead. Serena sat there holding the phone, listening to her own breathing echo off marble walls. Somewhere beyond the bathroom door, the luncheon continued. Speeches about underprivileged youth, silent auctions for weekend getaways, women air-kissing and pretending their marriages weren't slow-motion funerals. Serena flushed the toilet she hadn't used, washed her hands, reapplied her lipstick, and walked back into the ballroom wearing the same flawless smile she'd perfected over 7 years of performance. Margaret Chen waved her over. "Serena, there you are. We were just talking about the winter gala. You'll co-chair with Amanda, won't you?" "Of course," Serena said warmly. "I wouldn't miss it." Liar. By winter, there wouldn't be a gala. There wouldn't be a foundation. There wouldn't be anything left of the world these women inhabited except wreckage and federal indictments. But they didn't need to know that yet. Serena bought the burner phone from a bodega in Queens 2 days later, paying cash and wearing sunglasses she normally reserved for skiing trips. The clerk barely looked at her. Just another woman buying something she didn't want traced. She made the call from a Starbucks 3 blocks away, sitting in the back corner with a latte she didn't drink. Vivian Thorne answered on the first ring. "Talk to me." No preamble, no pleasantries. Serena liked her immediately. "My husband is having an affair with a woman named Celeste Arden. She's a VP at Vale Capital. It's been going on for at least 9 months, possibly longer." "How do you know?" "I found his second phone." "Do you still have access to it?" "Yes. Don't touch it again, not until I tell you exactly what to photograph and how to do it without leaving digital fingerprints." "What else?" Serena hesitated. This was the part that would sound insane, the part that would make most attorneys suggest therapy instead of litigation. "I don't just want a divorce," Serena said quietly. "I want him destroyed." Silence. Then Vivian laughed, a short, sharp sound that held no humor. "Mrs. Vale, I don't deal in revenge fantasies. I deal in legal strategy. If you want your husband humiliated, hire a private investigator and leak the affair to Page 6. If you want him financially decimated, you've called the right person. But I need to know which one you actually want, because they're not the same thing." "Both," Serena said. "I want both." Another pause. Longer this time. "That's a different conversation, and it requires a different kind of help than I can provide alone. Are you prepared to go places most people won't?" "Yes." "Are you prepared to become someone you currently don't recognize?" Serena thought about 7 years of smiling on command, 7 years of shrinking herself into decorative silence, 7 years of being known but never seen. "I already am," she said. Vivian made a sound that might have been approval. "Then we should meet." "But not at my office. There's a restaurant in Tribeca called Sorella. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Come alone. Bring nothing that connects you to your husband. No credit cards and joint names, no jewelry he bought you, nothing. Can you do that?" "Yes." "One more thing, Mrs. Vale. The moment you walk into that restaurant, your old life is over. You understand that, right? There's no going back to comfortable unhappiness. Once you start this, you finish it or it finishes you." Serena looked around the Starbucks. College students hunched over laptops. A mother wrestling a toddler into a high chair. Ordinary people living ordinary lives that didn't require burner phones and clandestine meetings. She could still walk away. Go home. Confront Damien. Demand couples therapy. Swallow the humiliation and settle for whatever scraps of dignity a generous divorce settlement could buy. Decorative. "I'll be there," Serena said and hung up. That night, Damien came home at 11:30 smelling like someone else's perfume. He kissed Serena on the forehead, a gesture so casual it barely registered as human contact, and asked if she'd eaten. "Hours ago," Serena said. "How was your day?" "Exhausting. Back-to-back meetings." He loosened his tie, scrolling through his phone with the distracted air of a man whose real life happened elsewhere. I'm going to shower and crash. Don't wait up. He didn't ask about her day. He never did. Serena watched him climb the stairs, listened to the water run, heard him humming something off-key through the bathroom door. Somewhere in this house was a second phone containing evidence that could ruin him. Somewhere in this city was an attorney who could weaponize that evidence into financial annihilation. And somewhere inside Serena's chest, something cold and patient was waking up. She poured herself a glass of wine, sat down at the kitchen island, opened her laptop and began researching. Vivian Thorne had won 42 high-profile divorces. 39 of them had ended with the husband losing more than 70% of contested assets. She'd once gotten a CEO's mistress charged with embezzlement for accepting gifts that technically belonged to corporate accounts. She'd torpedoed a hedge fund manager's Senate campaign by timing a divorce filing to coincide with his announcement speech. She was exactly what Serena needed. But Vivian had also said something that stuck like a burr. It requires a different kind of help than I can provide alone. What kind of help? Serena clicked through article after article until she found it. A profile in New York Magazine from 3 years ago. Buried in the text was a single reference to Vivian's unconventional investigative resources, and a mention of cases involving offshore accounts and international financial crimes. The kind of crimes that required more than a sharp attorney. The kind that required someone who operated in the places the law couldn't reach. Serena closed the laptop. Tomorrow night she would find out what Vivian meant, and whether she had the stomach for it. The restaurant was underground, accessible only through an unmarked door beside a flower shop that had been closed for hours. Serena found it at 8:55, wearing jeans and a plain black sweater, the least Serena Vale outfit she owned. Her wedding ring sat in a dish on her bathroom counter, the first time she'd removed it in 7 years. Her finger felt obscenely naked. The door opened before she could knock. A man in his 60s, built like a retired boxer, looked her up and down without expression. Name: Serena Vale. He stepped aside. Downstairs. Last door on the left. The stairs descended into warm light and the smell of garlic and wine. Serena could hear conversation in Italian, the clatter of a working kitchen, laughter. At the bottom, a narrow hallway stretched past what looked like private dining rooms. Last door on the left. Serena knocked. Come in. The room was small and beautiful. Exposed brick. A single table set for two, candles burning in old wine bottles. Vivian Thorne sat with her back to the wall, a woman in her mid-50s with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen every lie ever told. Sit, Vivian said. Serena sat. Wine? Please. Vivian poured from a bottle that had no label. This place doesn't exist on any map. The owner is a friend. What we say here stays here. Understood? Yes. Good. Vivian studied her with the clinical precision of a surgeon examining an X-ray. You look different without the armor. The armor? Designer clothes, professional hair, the mask you wear to fundraisers. Vivian sipped her wine. This is who you actually are. The question is whether you're strong enough to stay her when things get ugly. I am. We'll see. Vivian set down her glass. Here's the situation. Your husband isn't just cheating on you, he's stealing. Vale Capital has been running a sophisticated laundering operation through maritime shell corporations for at least 3 years. Dirty money gets cleaned through fake shipping manifests and offshore accounts, then cycles back into legitimate investments. It's elegant, it's profitable, and it's completely illegal. Serena's hands had gone cold. How do you know this? Because 2 months ago, one of his investors came to me with concerns. The investor didn't want a divorce. He wanted protection. He'd started noticing irregularities, money disappearing into accounts that shouldn't exist, contracts with shipping companies that didn't own ships. He thought Damien was embezzling. Was he? Worse, he was laundering money for people who make embezzlers look like shoplifters. Vivian leaned forward. And one of those people is about to become very relevant to your life. Who? The door opened. A man walked in. Serena's first impression was size. He filled the doorway without trying, 6'3" and broad-shouldered, moving with the economy of someone who'd learned violence young and never forgotten it. Dark hair going silver at the temples, a face that looked carved rather than born, eyes the color of seawater under storm clouds. He looked at Serena the way a chess master looks at an opponent's opening move, evaluating, calculating, utterly unimpressed by anything except capability. Nikolai Vorin, Vivian said calmly. Meet Serena Vale. Nikolai closed the door, sat down, poured himself wine without asking permission. Your husband, he said, his accent placing him somewhere in Eastern Europe decades ago, is laundering money that belongs to me. Serena's throat had gone dry. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. You're decorative. He said it without malice, just stating fact. But Vivian seems to think you might be something else now, so let me ask you a question, Mrs. Vale. Why are you here? I want a divorce. Lots of women want divorces. They hire attorneys, fill out paperwork, move to Connecticut. They don't end up in rooms with people like me. I want more than a divorce. What do you want? The question hung in the air between them. Serena looked at this man, this stranger whose reputation traveled through whispered conversations about shipping empires and real estate developments and darker things newspapers couldn't prove. This was the line Vivian had warned her about, the point of no return. She could stand up, walk out, find a normal attorney who specialized in normal divorces for normal people whose biggest problem was infidelity, not international money laundering. Decorative. I want him erased, Serena said quietly. I want every dollar he stole from you. I want every account frozen. I want federal investigators crawling through his offices and reporters camped outside his buildings. I want his mistress to realize she bet her career on a sinking ship. I want his name to become synonymous with fraud and failure. And when it's over, I want him to understand that I did this, that the wife he stopped seeing destroyed him while he was busy not noticing. Silence. Nikolai studied her with those cold seawater eyes. Then he smiled, a thin, dangerous thing that never reached his face. Vivian, he said, not looking away from Serena, you were right. She's not decorative anymore. He set down his wine glass. Here's what's going to happen, Mrs. Vale. You're going to go home tonight and continue being the perfect wife. Smile, attend your galas, sleep beside the man you're about to destroy. And while you're doing that, you're going to gather every piece of evidence you can find. Transaction records, passwords, client lists, account numbers, everything. And then you're going to give it all to me. And I'm going to use it to take back what your husband stole while simultaneously building a federal case that will bury him for the next decade. What do you get out of this? My money back, plus the satisfaction of watching a mediocre rich boy learn that stealing from me was the last mistake he'll ever make as a free man. And what do I get? Nikolai leaned back in his chair, regarding her with something that might have been respect. Everything he thought you weren't smart enough to take. Serena's heart was hammering against her ribs. This was insane. This was criminal conspiracy. This was partnership with a man whose business empire included things that made money laundering look quaint. This was exactly what she wanted. How do we start? She asked. Vivian slid a folder across the table. Devices, 3 burner phones, 2 with encrypted apps already installed, a miniature camera disguised as a pen, instructions for accessing Damien's home computer without leaving traces, and my private number, which you'll memorize and then burn. Serena opened the folder. Inside were photographs of Damien's office, his briefcase, his private safe. Someone had already been watching him. You've been planning this, she said slowly. I've been preparing for the right opportunity, Vivian corrected. You're that opportunity. Damien Vale stole from Nikolai. That makes him a target. But targets are just targets until someone on the inside opens the door. You're going to open every door in that house, every file, every secret. And when we're finished, there won't be enough left of him to scrape off the sidewalk. Nikolai stood. You have 48 hours to decide if you're serious. If you are, photograph everything in that safe and send it to the number in the folder. If you're not, walk away and forget this conversation happened. And if I walk away, then I handle Damien my way and you become collateral damage in a divorce that destroys you both. He buttoned his coat. But I don't think you're going to walk away, Mrs. Vale. I think you're going to go home, kiss your husband goodnight, and start building his cage while he sleeps. He was right. Serena knew it with the same cold certainty she'd felt standing barefoot on Italian marble, holding a phone that didn't belong to her. She was going to do this, all of it, I'll send the photos by Saturday, she said. Nikolai nodded once and left. Vivian poured more wine. You're sure? She asked quietly. Serena thought about 7 years of being invisible, 7 years of shrinking herself into silence, 7 years of living beside someone who knew her measurements but not her middle name. Yes, she said. I'm sure. Then welcome to the war, Serena. Try not to die before we win it. Serena drove home through empty streets, her hand steady on the wheel, the folder hidden inside her bag. The house was dark when she arrived. Damien's car was gone, probably at Celeste's apartment, probably whispering promises he'd already made and broken to someone else. Serena walked upstairs, changed into pajamas, brushed her teeth, washed her face. Normal, ordinary, decorative. Then she went to Damien's study, where his private safe sat behind a false panel in the bookshelf, and began the work of destroying her husband from the inside out. The safe opened on the second try. The combination was their wedding date backward, because Damien Vale possessed the imagination of wet concrete. Inside, documents, account statements, contracts, a second passport under a name Serena didn't recognize, and a ledger written in Damien's own handwriting, tracking transactions that would make a federal prosecutor weep with joy. Serena photographed everything, every page, every signature, every account number that shouldn't exist. The camera clicked softly in the darkness, documenting evidence that would eventually destroy an $800 million empire. And when she finished, Serena closed the safe, replaced the panel, and walked back to bed like nothing had happened. She was asleep when Damien finally came home at 3 a.m., smelling like expensive sheets and someone else's shampoo. He never even knew she'd been awake, and that was the moment Serena understood her true advantage. Damien Vale had spent 7 years training her to be invisible. Now she was going to use that invisibility to make him disappear. Outside, autumn was dying. Inside, Serena Vale was being born. And somewhere across the city, Nikolai Vorin was looking at photographs of financial crimes that would change everything. The war had begun. Damien just didn't know he'd already lost. The photographs arrived on Nikolai's encrypted server at 4:17 a.m. on a Saturday morning, sent from a device that would stop existing by sunrise. He was awake when they came through, insomnia being the price of building empires in industries where sleep got you killed, sitting in his Tribeca loft with black coffee and the kind of silence that only money could buy in Manhattan. The images loaded one by one: ledgers, transaction records, offshore account statements, a second passport, contract signatures that would make 3 different regulatory agencies simultaneously orgasmic. And handwriting. Damien Vale's own handwriting, documenting every dollar he'd stolen like a man who believed himself untouchable. Nikolai scrolled through 63 photographs, his expression never changing, his coffee going cold in his hand. When he reached the last image, a close-up of an account number traced to a shell corporation in the Caymans, he set down his phone and laughed once, a sound like a door slamming shut. The wife was serious. He hadn't been entirely sure until now. Rich women talked about revenge constantly, over wine, over lunch, over therapy sessions that cost more than most people's mortgages. They threatened to destroy their husbands the way other people threatened to start exercising. Noise without follow-through. But Serena Vale had walked into her husband's private safe and photographed evidence that could send him to federal prison for a decade, then gone to sleep beside him like nothing had happened. That wasn't noise. That was capacity. Nikolai forwarded the images to 3 different people: his attorney, his forensic accountant, and a federal investigator who owed him a favor large enough to overlook how the evidence had been obtained. Then he deleted the originals, burned the encryption key, and poured himself another cup of coffee. Somewhere across the city, Serena Vale was probably lying awake wondering if she'd made a catastrophic mistake. She had, just not the kind she was worried about. The mistake wasn't partnering with Nikolai Vorin. The mistake was thinking she could do this and walk away unchanged. Nobody touched this kind of darkness without it touching them back. But she'd figure that out soon enough. Serena spent Saturday morning at a farmer's market in Union Square, buying organic vegetables she wouldn't eat and artisanal bread that would go stale on the counter. The performance of normalcy. The camouflage of the decorative wife doing decorative things. Damien was golfing in Westchester with clients whose names appeared on Fortune 500 lists. He'd kissed her forehead on his way out, that same casual gesture that barely registered as affection, and told her not to wait up for dinner. She wouldn't. She had other plans. The burner phone vibrated in her pocket at 11:15 while she was pretending to examine heirloom tomatoes. Unknown number. Serena walked away from the vegetable stand, phone pressed to her ear. Yes? It's Vivian. The photographs were excellent. Nikolai's people are already building the framework. We need to meet. When? Now. Same place. Come alone. The line went dead. Serena looked at the bag of vegetables in her hand, $15 worth of organic performance art, and dropped it in the nearest trash can. Then she caught a cab downtown, watching the city scroll past in autumn sunlight that felt like a lie. Everything felt like a lie now. Her marriage, her friendships, the carefully constructed life she'd spent 7 years inhabiting like a stranger wearing someone else's clothes. The only truth was the war, and the war required her complete attention. The restaurant was open this time, lunch service in full swing upstairs, while Serena descended into the private dining room where Vivian waited with another woman, younger, maybe 30, with the hyper-alert eyes of someone who'd learned to read danger before it arrived. Serena Vale, meet Naomi Mercer, Vivian said without preamble. She's a federal investigator with the Financial Crimes Division. She's also the person who's going to make sure your husband doesn't just lose his money, he loses his freedom. Naomi didn't offer her hand, just studied Serena with the clinical detachment of someone deciding whether to trust her or arrest her. You understand what you've done, right? Naomi said. Those photographs you took constitute illegal search and seizure. Nothing you found is admissible in court. I know, Serena said quietly. So why am I here? Vivian answered. Because Serena's evidence gives you probable cause to obtain legitimate warrants. She opened the door. You're going to walk through it legally and build a case that doesn't require her testimony. Naomi's expression didn't change. And what does Mrs. Vale get out of this arrangement? Immunity from any charges related to her husband's criminal activities, Vivian said, plus complete financial separation before the indictments become public. That's a lot to ask. She's offering you Damien Vale on a silver platter. That seems like a fair trade. Naomi looked at Serena for a long moment. Why are you doing this? The question landed heavier than it should have. Serena could have said, because he cheated, because he called me decorative, because 7 years of invisibility earned me the right to watch him burn. Instead, she said, because he won't stop. Men like Damien never stop. They just get better at hiding it. Something shifted in Naomi's face. Recognition, maybe. Or respect. I'll need more than photographs, she said. I'll need access to physical documents, transaction records, communications. Can you get those? Yes. Without him knowing? Yes. And you understand that once I start the investigation, there's no stopping it? Even if you change your mind, even if you want to reconcile, this moves forward with or without you. Serena thought about Damien's hand on the small of Celeste's back in a hotel lobby photograph. The way he'd smiled at her, really smiled. The kind of smile Serena hadn't seen in years. I understand, she said. Naomi nodded slowly. Then we have a deal. I'll be in touch through Vivian. And Mrs. Vale, don't do anything stupid. Don't confront him. Don't change your behavior. Don't give him any reason to look at you differently. You're still the decorative wife until I tell you otherwise. I know my role, Serena said. She'd been playing it for 7 years. What was a few more months? Damien came home that night at 9:30, sunburned and loose from expensive scotch, and the easy camaraderie of men who'd never questioned their place in the world. He found Serena in the kitchen, reading a novel she wasn't actually processing. Hey, he said, kissing the top of her head. Good day? Quiet. Farmer's market. Lunch with Claire. The lie came easily. Claire was in London for the month. Damien wouldn't know because he never asked about Serena's friends, never tracked her schedule, never wondered where she went or who she saw. His indifference had become her camouflage. I'm starving, Damien said, opening the refrigerator. We have anything decent? Leftover chicken from Thursday. Perfect. He pulled out containers, moving through the kitchen with the comfortable entitlement of someone who'd never questioned whether he deserved comfort. Oh, I meant to tell you, the Foundation Gala is December 15th this year. Moved it up because of the holidays. You'll need to coordinate with the event planner. The Foundation Gala. Damien's annual celebration of himself disguised as charity. 800 guests, media coverage, speeches about integrity and legacy. Serena felt something cold and sharp crystallize in her chest. December 15th, she repeated. That's only 6 weeks away. I know, it's rushed, but it'll be fine. You're good at this stuff. You're good at this stuff. Translation, you're decorative and decoration is your function. I'll call Stephanie on Monday, Serena said. Damien smiled, that absent, distracted smile of a man whose mind was already elsewhere, and carried his food upstairs to eat in front of whatever game was playing. Serena sat alone in the kitchen, listening to the house settle around her, thinking about December 15th. 6 weeks. 6 weeks to dismantle a man's entire life while planning the party where he'd celebrate its continuation. The symmetry was almost beautiful. The next 3 weeks moved like water, slow on the surface, churning underneath. Serena fell into a rhythm that felt like method acting. Wake up, smile, attend charity functions, have lunch with women who didn't see her, come home, wait for Damien to leave or fall asleep, then do the real work. She photographed documents from his briefcase while he showered, copied files from his computer while he golfed on Sundays, recorded conversations using the pen camera Vivian had provided, capturing Damien on the phone discussing transactions that would make a prosecutor's career. Everything went to Nikolai's encrypted server. Everything disappeared into the machinery of federal investigation. And through it all, Serena played the perfect wife so flawlessly that Damien actually started paying her more attention. He brought home flowers on a Tuesday, booked a weekend at their place in the Hamptons, asked if she wanted to try for a baby. The cruelty of it was almost elegant. He was falling back in love with her, or his version of her, the decorative accessory he'd grown comfortable ignoring at exactly the moment she was destroying him. You seem different lately, he said one night, lying beside her in the dark. Happier. Serena's throat constricted. Do I? Yeah, I don't know. Lighter, maybe. His hand found hers under the covers. I know I've been distracted. Work's been insane. But I'm glad we're good. We're good. Serena lay there in the darkness, her hand in her husband's hand, listening to him drift towards sleep. They weren't good. They were a bomb disguised as a marriage, and the timer was already counting down. But Damien didn't need to know that yet. So Serena squeezed his hand gently and whispered, "Me too," and tried not to think about how easy lying had become. The first crack in Damien's facade appeared on a Wednesday in late November. Serena was having coffee with Margaret Chen, actual coffee this time, not performance, when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Meeting tonight, 8 p.m., same place, urgent. Serena's pulse kicked up. Vivian didn't use the word urgent casually. Everything okay? Margaret asked, watching Serena's face. Work thing for Damien, Serena lied smoothly. I need to make a call. Excuse me. She stepped outside into November cold, breath fogging in the air, and dialed Vivian's real number from the burner phone. What happened? Damien's getting nervous, Vivian said without preamble. One of his clients pulled out of a major deal yesterday. No explanation, just gone. He's starting to ask questions. What kind of questions? The kind that mean he's noticing patterns, money moving incorrectly, clients getting cold feet, small things that don't make sense individually but add up to something wrong. Vivian paused. He's also hired a private investigator. Serena's blood went cold. To follow me? We don't know yet. Could be you, could be Celeste, could be he's just paranoid. But it means we need to accelerate the timeline. How much faster? Naomi's ready to move. She has enough for warrants. We just need one more piece, physical evidence she can seize legally. Something in Damien's office at Vale Capital. I can't get into his office. Security's too tight. You don't have to. Nikolai can. The line went quiet. Serena looked up at the November sky, gray and heavy with coming snow, and felt the ground shifting beneath her. What are you asking me to do? Distract your husband. Friday night. Keep him home. Keep him occupied. Keep him away from his office for at least 3 hours. Can you do that? Serena thought about Damien's hand finding hers in the dark. His smile when he brought home flowers. The way he'd started looking at her again, as if remembering she existed. Yes, she said. I can do that. Then we'll handle the rest. Vivian hung up. Serena stood there on the sidewalk, phone cold against her ear, while people moved past her like she was invisible. She'd crossed another line. She could feel it, the way you feel a bone break before the pain arrives. This wasn't just gathering evidence anymore. This was active conspiracy. But she was too far in to stop now. So Serena went back inside, smiled at Margaret, and finished her coffee while planning how to seduce her husband into staying home on the night his empire would begin collapsing. Friday arrived wrapped in the first real snowfall of the season. Serena spent the afternoon preparing. Nothing obvious, nothing Damien would question. She made his favorite dinner, opened expensive wine, put on the black dress he'd bought her for their anniversary 3 years ago. Damien noticed immediately when he came home. "What's the occasion?" he asked, loosening his tie. "No occasion. I just wanted to do something nice." Serena kissed him, really kissed him, the way she used to before invisibility became her default state. "We haven't had a night to ourselves in weeks." Something shifted in Damien's expression. Surprise, maybe. Or suspicion. But then Serena smiled and whatever doubt he'd felt dissolved. "I have some calls to make," he said. "Give me an hour? Take your time." Serena watched him climb the stairs to his study, phone already pressed to his ear, and felt nothing except the cold machinery of execution. She texted Vivian from the burner. "He's home. You're clear." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then, moving now. Somewhere across the city, Nikolai Vorin was walking into Vale Capital's offices with credentials that would pass any security check, heading toward Damien's private files like a surgeon approaching an operating table. And Serena was setting the table for a dinner that would keep her husband distracted while his life ended. They ate slowly, drank wine, talked about the upcoming gala. Damien excited about the guest list, Serena nodding in all the right places while her phone sat face down on the counter, waiting for confirmation that Nikolai had gotten what they needed. "You know what I was thinking?" Damien said, reaching across the table for her hand. "We should go away for the holidays, somewhere warm. Just us. No work, no phones, no obligations." Serena looked at their joined hands. In another life, this would have been enough. This attention, this promise of escape. This man finally seeing her after 7 years of looking through her. But that life had ended the moment she'd unlocked his second phone. "That sounds perfect," she said. Damien smiled, genuinely smiled, the way he used to when they first met, and Serena felt something crack inside her chest. Not regret. Something worse. The recognition that she'd become exactly what this war required. Someone capable of love and destruction simultaneously, of holding her husband's hand while the world he'd built burned down around him. The phone vibrated. Serena didn't look at it. "More wine?" she asked. "Sure." She poured, her hands perfectly steady, while the message waited unread on the counter. They finished dinner, moved to the couch. Damien pulled her close, and Serena let herself sink into the warmth of his body, memorizing the moment before everything changed. "I love you," Damien said quietly. He hadn't said that in 8 months. Serena closed her eyes. "I love you too," she lied, and it was the last lie she would ever tell him as his wife. At 11:30, after Damien had fallen asleep upstairs, Serena finally checked her phone. One message from Vivian. "We got it. Everything we needed. It's over." One message from Nikolai. "Good work. Stay quiet. This moves fast now." Serena sat in the dark kitchen, snow falling silent outside the windows, and felt the weight of what she'd done settle into her bones. There was no going back. In 3 days, maybe 4, federal investigators would arrive at Vale Capital with warrants. They'd seize documents, freeze accounts, begin the slow, methodical destruction of everything Damien had built. And when it happened, when his world collapsed, he would look for someone to blame. He would never think to look at his wife. Because she was decorative. And decorative things weren't capable of this kind of damage. That was his final mistake. And Serena's ultimate advantage. She went upstairs, crawled into bed beside her husband, and lay awake listening to him breathe, already mourning the man he'd been before she'd learned to see him clearly. By Monday, Damien had stopped sleeping. Serena noticed it first in the bruises under his eyes, then in the way he moved through the house. Restless, agitated, checking his phone every 30 seconds, like a man waiting for a bomb to detonate. "What's wrong?" she asked over breakfast. "Nothing. Work stuff." But it wasn't nothing. Clients were pulling out of deals without explanation. His CFO had stopped returning calls. And Friday night, while Damien had been home having dinner with his wife, someone had accessed his office at Vale Capital. Nothing stolen, nothing obviously disturbed, but the security logs showed an entry that shouldn't have existed. Damien was starting to understand that something was wrong. He just didn't know what yet. Or who. "You should take a day off," Serena suggested gently. "You look exhausted." "I can't. There's too much happening." "Like what?" For a moment, Damien almost told her. She could see it, the need to confide in someone, to share the pressure building behind his eyes. But then his phone rang, and the moment passed. "I have to take this," he said, already walking away. Serena sat alone at the breakfast table, listening to his voice rise in the other room, angry and afraid, and felt nothing except the cold satisfaction of watching the trap close. That afternoon, while Damien was at the office trying to stop hemorrhaging clients, Serena met Nikolai for the first time since the restaurant. He'd chosen a location in Brooklyn, a warehouse converted into artist studios, the kind of place where nobody asked questions and security cameras mysteriously malfunctioned. Nikolai was standing by a window when Serena arrived, looking out at the East River like a man who owned the view. "Your husband is scared," he said, without turning around. "I know. He should be. The federal investigation goes public in 72 hours, maybe less." Serena's pulse kicked. "That soon?" "Naomi's ready. The warrants are signed. The evidence is overwhelming." Nikolai finally looked at her. "Which means you need to make a choice, Mrs. Vale." "What choice?" "Whether you want to be there when it happens." The question hung in the air between them. Serena thought about the gala, December 15th, now less than 2 weeks away. Damien's moment of triumph. The night he would stand in front of 800 people and talk about integrity while federal investigators waited in the wings with handcuffs. The poetry of it was almost obscene. "I want to be there," Serena said quietly. "I want to watch." Nikolai's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Approval, maybe, or recognition. "Then you'll need to disappear first, quietly. No drama, no explanations, just gone. Can you do that?" "When?" "Soon. We'll tell you when. But when we do, you leave immediately. No goodbyes, no second thoughts. You understand?" Serena thought about 7 years in a house that had never felt like home. 7 years of performing happiness for a man who'd stopped seeing her before she'd stopped being worth seeing. "I understand," she said. Nikolai studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. "You're different than I expected," he said finally. "How so?" "Most people who want revenge talk about it constantly, make threats, get emotional." He stepped closer. "You just went quiet and started building the cage. That takes a particular kind of discipline. Or a particular kind of anger. Maybe, but anger fades. Discipline doesn't." Nikolai's voice dropped. "Your husband thought you were decorative because you didn't fight back. He mistook patience for weakness. That was his mistake." "What's yours?" Serena asked. The question surprised him. She could see it in the slight shift of his shoulders, the way his eyes narrowed fractionally. "I don't make mistakes, Mrs. Vale. Everyone makes mistakes." "Then I haven't made mine yet." He pulled an envelope from his coat pocket. "New identification, passport, driver's license, credit cards, all under your maiden name. When you disappear completely. Serena Vale ceases to exist." Serena took the envelope, feeling its weight in her hands, her old life condensed into paper and plastic. "What happens after?" she asked. "After what?" "After Damien's arrested. After the scandal. After everything burns down." Nikolai considered this. "That depends on what you want." "I want to be free." "Then you will be. The divorce will be finalized before he's sentenced. Vivian's already drafted the papers. Everything he owns becomes evidence in a criminal case, which means the court sequesters it before division. You get nothing from the marriage, but you also get nothing from the crimes. Clean separation. It should have felt like losing. Instead, it felt like shedding skin. "And what about you?" Serena asked. "What do you get?" "My money back, and the satisfaction of watching a thief realize that stealing from me was the last mistake of his free life." Nikolai paused. "Plus, I get to see what you become next." Why do you care what I become? Because people who survive this kind of transformation are rare. Most of them break. They get revenge and then collapse under the weight of what they've done. His eyes were steady on hers. But you won't. You're built different. You don't know me. I know what you've done in the last month. That tells me everything I need to know. Serena looked out the window at the river, at the city spreading out beyond it, and tried to imagine herself existing in that world without the weight of Damien Vale crushing her into invisibility. She couldn't picture it yet, but she wanted to. When do I leave? She asked. We'll call you. Could be 3 days, could be 3 hours. Be ready. Serena nodded. Nikolai walked her to the door, his presence somehow both threatening and reassuring, like standing next to something dangerous that had decided not to kill you. One more thing, he said as she was leaving. Your husband's mistress. Serena's jaw tightened. What about her? She's scared. She knows something's wrong. She's been trying to distance herself from Damien for the last week. Good for her. Naomi thinks Celeste might cooperate, turn state's evidence. It would make the case stronger. So let her. That's not what I'm asking. Nikolai's voice was quiet. I'm asking if you want her destroyed too. Serena thought about Celeste Arden, young, ambitious, probably convinced she was in love with a man who saw her the same way he'd once seen Serena. Just another decoration. Another thing to own. No, Serena said finally. She's not the villain. She's just another woman who didn't know what she was getting into. That's generous. It's not generosity. It's clarity. Damien's the one who deserves to burn. Everyone else is just collateral damage. Nikolai smiled, that thin, dangerous smile that never reached his eyes. See? He said. Built different. Serena left the warehouse feeling like she'd passed some test she hadn't known she was taking. The next week moved in slow motion and fast forward simultaneously. Days blurred together. Serena went through the motions, gala planning meetings, lunch with donors, dress fittings for an event she wouldn't attend, while the world tilted underneath her. Damien got worse. He stopped coming home for dinner, started drinking before noon, snapped at people who'd never seen him lose composure. And he started watching Serena differently, not with suspicion exactly, more like he was trying to remember who she was. Are you happy? He asked one night, the question coming out of nowhere while they were getting ready for bed. Serena froze, mascara wand halfway to her lashes. What? Are you happy? With us. With this. He gestured vaguely at their bedroom, the king-sized bed, the designer furniture, the life they'd built from appearances and money, because sometimes I wonder if I've been paying attention to the wrong things. Serena's throat constricted. This was the moment she'd imagined 1,000 times. Damien finally seeing her, finally asking, and it was 6 months too late. I'm fine, she said. That's not what I asked. I know. Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Finally, Damien looked away. I'm trying, Serena. I know I've been distracted, but I'm trying. The tragedy was that he meant it. He was finally trying, finally noticing, finally caring, right before she vanished into smoke. I know you are, Serena said softly. And that was the last real conversation they would ever have. The call came at 2:15 a.m. on December 10th, Serena's burner phone vibrating under her pillow where Damien wouldn't hear it. Unknown number. She slipped out of bed, moved to the bathroom, closed the door. Yes? It's time, Vivian's voice, clipped and urgent. Federal investigators execute warrants at Vale Capital in 4 hours. You need to leave now. Serena's heart slammed against her ribs. Now? Right now. Pack light. Take only what you need. A car's waiting 3 blocks north of your house. Black sedan. License plate GHX 4729. Driver won't ask questions. He'll take you to a safe location. What about no goodbyes, Serena? No notes. No explanations. You leave like smoke. Understood? Serena looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, barefoot, wearing one of Damien's old t-shirts, her face clean of makeup. This was who she actually was. Not the decorative wife in designer clothes, just a woman standing at the edge of everything she'd ever known, about to jump. Understood, she whispered. Good. The gala is in 5 days. Between now and then, you stay disappeared. When the time comes, we'll tell you where to be. The line went dead. Serena stood there in the bathroom, listening to her husband breathe in the next room, and felt the weight of finality settle into her bones. This was it, the point of no return. She moved quietly through the dark house, packing a single bag with clothes, documents, the envelope Nikolai had given her. Everything else, the designer wardrobe, the jewelry, the accumulated debris of 7 years, stayed behind. None of it had ever really been hers anyway. At the bedroom door, Serena paused. Damien was asleep, face peaceful in the dim light from the street. She could wake him, explain, give him one last chance to understand what was coming. But that would be mercy. And Damien Vale hadn't earned mercy. So Serena turned and walked away, her footsteps silent on carpet that cost more than most people's cars, leaving behind a life that had stopped fitting years before she'd finally noticed. The cold hit her like a fist when she stepped outside. December in New York, snow threatening in the air, the city holding its breath before the storm. The black sedan was exactly where Vivian had said it would be. Serena climbed in without looking back. "Where to?" the driver asked. Serena gave him the address Vivian had texted, a hotel in Lower Manhattan, anonymous and expensive, the kind of place that didn't ask questions. As they pulled away from Wintermere Drive, Serena looked back once at the house, where she'd spent 7 years being invisible. All the lights were off except one, Damien's study. He must have woken up, gone looking for her, found her gone. Serena watched that single light until they turned the corner and it disappeared. Then she faced forward and didn't look back again. By sunrise, federal investigators would be swarming Vale Capital. By noon, Damien's world would be ending. And Serena Vale, the decorative wife, the invisible woman, the thing Damien had stopped seeing years ago, would be halfway to becoming someone else entirely. The driver said nothing for the entire trip, just drove through empty streets while the city slept, unaware that in a few hours, one of its most prominent citizens would fall so hard the impact would register in 3 different federal agencies. The hotel was glass and steel, modern and cold. Serena checked in under her maiden name, Serena Hale, and the clerk barely glanced at her, already invisible again, but this time by choice. The room was on the 23rd floor, overlooking Manhattan like a promise or a threat. Serena stood at the window watching the city wake up, lights flickering on building by building, and tried to remember who she'd been before Damien, before the mansion, before the galas, before she'd learned to shrink herself into decorative silence. She couldn't. That woman was gone, but someone new was being born. Someone harder, colder, capable of things the old Serena would never have imagined. Serena's phone buzzed. Text from Nikolai. "It's done. Warrants executed. Damien's at Vale Capital now. You should watch." A link followed. Live news feed. Serena clicked it with shaking hands. The screen filled with footage of Vale Capital's headquarters. Federal vehicles surrounding the building, agents walking in with boxes, reporters already swarming like sharks who'd smelled blood. And there, being let out in handcuffs, looking 10 years older than he had 6 hours ago, Damien Vale, the man she'd married, the man she'd destroyed. Serena watched him get pushed into a federal vehicle, watched him stumble, watched the cameras catch every moment of his humiliation, and she felt nothing. No triumph, no grief, no satisfaction, just the cold, empty clarity of someone who'd burned down their whole life and was standing in the ashes wondering what came next. Her phone rang. "Nikolai." "Did you watch?" he asked. "Yes." "How do you feel?" Serena looked at her reflection in the hotel window, a ghost superimposed over the city, barely there. "I don't know," she said honestly. "You will. Give it time." A pause. The gala is still happening. Damien's attorneys convinced the foundation board not to cancel. They think it'll look guilty. They're right. Which means you'll have your moment 5 days from now. December 15th, 8 p.m. Blackthorn Regency Ballroom. Damien will be there, out on bail, desperate to salvage his reputation. Serena's pulse kicked. And you'll walk in like the ghost you've become and finish what you started. "I don't understand." "You will. We'll talk before then. For now, rest. You've earned it." Nikolai hung up. Serena stood at the window as dawn broke over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of gray and gold, and tried to imagine herself walking into that ballroom, walking toward Damien, finishing it. She couldn't picture how it would end. But she knew, with the cold certainty of someone who'd already crossed every line that mattered, that when she walked into that ballroom 5 days from now, the woman who'd spent 7 years being decorative would finally, permanently, cease to exist. And whoever walked out, whoever she became after the final act, would be someone Damien Vale never saw coming, because he'd trained her too well. He'd taught her to be invisible, and now she was going to use that invisibility to make him disappear. Outside, the city woke to news of the biggest financial scandal in a decade. Inside room 2317, Serena Hale, no longer Serena Vale, not anymore, maybe never again, finally closed her eyes and let herself sleep. The war wasn't over, but the end had begun, and there was no going back. The news broke everywhere simultaneously. Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, CNN, every financial network and gossip blog lighting up with the same story. Damien Vale, billionaire financier and philanthropist, arrested on federal charges of money laundering, wire fraud, and racketeering. Serena watched it all from her hotel room, laptop open, television on mute, her coffee going cold while the empire she'd helped destroy burned across every screen in America. They showed footage of Damien being led out of Vale Capital in handcuffs. His face looked wrong, like someone had hollowed him out and left only the shell. His expensive suit wrinkled, his hair uncombed. The man who'd always controlled every detail of his appearance, suddenly unable to control anything. The reporters were already digging, already finding threads to pull. Offshore accounts, shell corporations, maritime fraud, names connected to organized crime, to international money laundering operations, to things so dark that even the financial press tiptoed around them with careful language. And underneath it all, one question everyone was asking: where is his wife? Serena Hale, she'd stopped thinking of herself as Vale the moment she'd left that house, sat cross-legged on a hotel bed that cost $800 a night and watched herself become a mystery. The news showed photographs from charity events, Serena in designer gowns, always half a step behind Damien, always smiling that perfect decorative smile. The footage made her look like a ghost even before she'd disappeared. One reporter called her notably absent from her husband's arraignment. Another speculated about marital problems, about whether she'd known, about whether she was complicit. Nobody had the story right. Nobody knew she was the one who'd lit the match. Her burner phone buzzed. Text from Vivian: "Don't watch the news. It'll make you crazy. Focus on what's next." But Serena couldn't stop watching. Couldn't stop seeing Damien's face as they shoved him into that federal vehicle, the way his eyes had scanned the crowd like he was looking for someone. Looking for her. A knock at the door made her heart stop. Serena muted the television, moved to the door, looked through the peephole. A woman. Mid-50s, steel gray hair, expensive coat. Vivian. Serena opened the door. Vivian walked in without greeting, her expression grim in a way that made Serena's stomach drop. "What's wrong?" "We have a problem." Vivian set her briefcase on the desk, clicked it open, pulled out a folder. "Damien made bail 2 hours ago." "What? How?" "His family has money in places the feds couldn't freeze fast enough. They posted $20 million. He's out, ankle monitor, travel restrictions, the whole package. But he's out." Serena felt something cold slide down her spine. "He can't be." "He is, and he's already making moves." Vivian pulled out a photograph. Damien leaving the courthouse, surrounded by attorneys, his face set in an expression Serena had never seen before. Not anger, not fear, something colder. "He fired his entire legal team this morning, hired someone new, someone dangerous." "Who?" "Marcus Reeves. Heard of him?" Serena shook her head. "He's a fixer. Not exactly a lawyer, more like a mercenary with a law degree. He specializes in destroying people who come after his clients. And his first move was filing a countersuit." "Against who?" Vivian's expression went harder. "Against you." The words didn't make sense at first. Serena just stared at her, the syllables refusing to arrange themselves into meaning. "Against me? For what?" "Conspiracy. Theft of proprietary documents, fraudulent claims and divorce proceedings. Reeves is arguing that you orchestrated the entire federal investigation as revenge for marital infidelity, that you illegally obtained evidence, and that you're working with Damien's criminal competitors to destroy him." Serena's legs went weak. She sat down hard on the edge of the bed. "That's insane. I didn't..." The federal investigation was legitimate. Naomi had warrants. Everything was legal. Was it? Vivian's voice was quiet, dangerous. Because the photographs you took weren't legal, Serena. The documents you stole weren't legal. You broke into your husband's safe and copied evidence without a warrant. Reeves is going to argue that everything Naomi found is fruit of a poisonous tree. But you told me it would be fine, that Naomi could work around it. I said she could if nobody questioned the chain of evidence, but Reeves is questioning everything. And he's good, really good. The kind of attorney who finds holes in federal cases for breakfast. Serena's hands were shaking. What does this mean? It means Damien knows. I don't know how, but he knows you were involved, and now he's coming after you with everything he has left. The room tilted. Serena stood up, paced to the window, pressed her forehead against the cold glass. Damien knew. The one thing that wasn't supposed to happen, the one advantage she'd had, invisibility, the element of surprise, was gone. How? She whispered. How does he know? We're not sure yet. Could be he figured it out on his own. Could be someone talked. Could be... Vivian's phone rang. She looked at the screen and something in her face changed. I need to take this, she said, stepping into the hallway. Serena stood alone in the hotel room, watching the city move below her, and tried to understand how everything had gone so wrong so fast. 5 days ago, she'd been invisible, untouchable, executing a perfect revenge. Now Damien knew. Now he was fighting back. Now she was exposed. Vivian came back in looking like she'd aged 10 years in 3 minutes. That was Naomi, she said quietly. The FBI wants to talk to you. Why? Because Reeves filed a motion to compel your testimony. He's arguing that you're a material witness to Damien's defense, that your involvement in gathering evidence is directly relevant to whether that evidence is admissible. Can they make me testify? Yes. And if you refuse, you can be held in contempt, which means jail. Serena's vision narrowed to a pinpoint. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to be the invisible hand, the ghost, the woman who destroyed Damien Vale and walked away clean. Instead, she was about to be dragged into a courtroom and forced to admit everything. What do I do? She asked. Vivian was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that made Serena's blood run cold. You could run. New identity. New country. Nikolai has resources. He could make you disappear permanently. And spend the rest of my life hiding? Better than prison? Or worse? What's worse than prison? Vivian's eyes were steady on hers. Damien winning. You testifying, getting torn apart on cross-examination, the federal case collapsing, Damien walking free and coming after you for everything you've done. That's worse. Serena sat down again, her mind racing. Run. Testify. Fight. All bad options. All dead ends. There's a third option, Vivian said quietly. What? You meet with Damien, directly, before any testimony happens. You negotiate. Negotiate what? A truce. You drop the divorce proceedings, you refuse to testify against him, and in exchange he drops the countersuit and lets you walk away clean. He'll never agree to that. He might, if he thinks he can still save his reputation. If he thinks you'll publicly support him, stand by him, play the loyal wife one more time. Serena laughed, a sound like breaking glass. After everything I've done, he'll want me dead. Maybe. Or maybe he'll want you more. Vivian's voice was gentle, pitying. Men like Damien don't let go easily, especially not of things they think belong to them. I don't belong to him anymore. Then you better be ready to prove that in court, because that's where this is heading. Before Serena could respond, her burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered, hands shaking. Hello? Serena. The voice made her stomach drop. It's me. Damien. His voice sounded raw, wrecked, like he'd been screaming for hours. How did you get this number? Does it matter? We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. That's a lie. You have 7 years of things to say to me, and I finally want to hear them. Serena looked at Vivian, who was frantically shaking her head, mouthing the words, hang up, hang up, hang up. But Serena couldn't. Some sick part of her wanted this. Wanted to hear what Damien would say now that he finally saw her. Talk, she said. Not on the phone. In person. Tonight. There's a place, but no. Serena, please, I know what you did. I know you gave them everything. I know you're the reason I'm wearing an ankle monitor and facing 20 years in federal prison. I know all of it. Then you know why I'll never meet you alone. I'm not asking you to meet me alone. Bring whoever you want. Bring your lawyer. Bring the fucking FBI. I don't care. I just need to see you. Why? Silence on the line. Then, so quietly, she almost didn't hear it. Because I need to understand why I never saw you. The words hit her like a physical blow. 7 years of being invisible. And now, when it was too late, when everything was burned and broken, he finally wanted to see her. Where, Serena heard herself ask. Vivian was shaking her head harder now, but Serena ignored her. The house. Wintermere Drive, 9 p.m. Come alone or don't come at all. I'm not going to hurt you, Serena. I'm not a monster. I just want to talk to my wife one last time before we both go to war. He hung up. Serena stood there holding the phone, her heart hammering against her ribs. Tell me you're not actually considering this, Vivian said. I have to. No, you absolutely do not have to walk into a house alone with a man you just destroyed. That's how people end up on Dateline, Serena. He won't hurt me. You don't know that. You don't know what he's capable of anymore. People get desperate. They do desperate things. Serena looked at Vivian. I've been living with him for 7 years. If he was going to hurt me, he would have done it already. That was before you ruined his life. I didn't ruin his life. He ruined it himself by stealing money and fucking his assistant and treating me like furniture. And now he knows you're the one who exposed him. You think that's not going to change how he sees you? Serena thought about Damien's voice on the phone, the exhaustion, the confusion, the desperate need to understand. He didn't sound angry. He sounded broken. I'm going, she said. Then I'm calling Nikolai. You're not doing this without backup. Fine, call him, but I'm still going. Vivian stared at her for a long moment, then pulled out her phone. 2 minutes later, Nikolai was on speaker. She wants to meet with Damien, Vivian said without preamble. Tonight, at the house. Tell her she's insane. She's not insane, Nikolai said calmly. She's strategic. Damien wants something. We need to know what. Or he wants to kill her and make it look like an accident. Damien Vale isn't a killer. He's a thief and a liar, but he's not violent. You don't know that. Actually, I do. I've been watching him for 3 years. I know exactly what he is. Nikolai paused. Serena, if you go to this meeting, you go wired. Audio and video. Everything recorded. And I'll be outside in a car with 2 very large men who specialize in making sure people don't die in houses they shouldn't be in. Okay, Serena said. And you don't agree to anything. You listen. You observe. You get information. But you make no promises, no deals, nothing that could be used against you later. Understood? Yes. Good. I'll send someone to the hotel in an hour with the equipment. Vivian, you'll brief her on what to say and what not to say. I still think this is a terrible idea, Vivian muttered. It probably is, Nikolai agreed. But terrible ideas are sometimes the only ideas left. He hung up. Serena sat down on his bed again, trying to process what she'd just agreed to. In 6 hours, she would walk back into the house she'd fled 5 days ago. She would sit across from the man she'd spent a month destroying, and she would look him in the eye while he asked her why. The question was whether she actually had an answer, or whether the truth, that she'd done it because he'd made her invisible, because he'd called her decorative, because 7 years of living as furniture had finally broken something inside her that couldn't be fixed, would sound as hollow out loud as it felt in her chest. The technician who arrived at 6 p.m. looked like he installed home theater systems for a living, not surveillance equipment for quasi-legal operations. Young, unremarkable, the kind of person you'd forget 30 seconds after meeting him. Perfect for this line of work. He showed Serena the wire, a tiny microphone that clipped inside her bra, invisible under clothing. The camera was even smaller, embedded in a necklace that looked expensive but cost $40 on Amazon. Just act natural, he said, testing the audio levels. Don't touch the necklace. Don't adjust the wire. And definitely don't tell him you're recording. That's illegal, isn't it? Only if you get caught, he grinned. New York is a one-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded, you're technically legal, and you're that one person. Technically legal sounds like actually illegal. Welcome to the gray area. Nikolai lives here full time. He packed up his equipment. You'll be fine. Just remember, you're not there to fight. You're there to gather information. What does Damien know? Who told him? What's his endgame? Get those answers and get out. After he left, Vivian ran her through potential scenarios. If he threatens you, you leave immediately. Don't engage, don't argue, just walk out. If he gets emotional, let him. Emotional people say things they shouldn't. If he asks you to drop the divorce or the federal cooperation, you tell him you'll consider it and you'll have your attorney contact his attorney. You make no promises. What if he asked me why I did it? Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then you tell him the truth, but you do it without apologizing. No matter what he says, no matter how he makes you feel, you do not apologize for choosing yourself. Serena nodded, but her throat felt tight. Because part of her, some small, sick part, wanted to apologize. Wanted to take it all back. Wanted to go back to being decorative if it meant not feeling this crushing weight of uncertainty and fear. But that woman was dead. She'd killed her the night she'd unlocked Damien's second phone, and Ghost couldn't apologize. The car picked her up at 8:30. Different driver, same black sedan. Nobody spoke during the 20-minute drive to Wintermere Drive. Serena watched the familiar streets roll past, the route she'd taken 1,000 times, back when this life had been hers, back before she'd learned to see it clearly. The house looked the same, lights on in the windows, expensive cars in neighboring driveways, the kind of neighborhood where people kept their secrets behind gates and their scandals behind lawyers. Serena got out of the car. Another vehicle was parked half a block down, Nikolai's backup, presumably. She couldn't see inside, but knowing they were there made her feel fractionally less alone. The front door was unlocked. Serena pushed it open and stepped into the foyer that had never felt like home. The house smelled different, stale, like nobody had been living here, just existing. "Damien?" she called. "In here!" His voice came from the library. Serena walked through the house she'd shared with him for 7 years, past furniture she'd never chosen, past photographs of a marriage that had been performance art, until she reached the library door. Damien sat in his leather chair by the fireplace, a glass of scotch in his hand, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. He'd lost weight. His eyes were hollow. The ankle monitor was visible above his expensive shoes, a thick black band that screamed federal supervision. He looked up when she entered, and something in his face broke. "You came," he said. "You asked me to." "I didn't think you would." Serena stayed in the doorway, maintaining distance. "What do you want, Damien?" "Sit, please." "I'd rather stand." "Serena, you have 30 minutes. Talk." Damien set down his scotch with shaking hands. "How long have you known?" "Known what?" "Don't." His voice cracked. "Don't play games. Not now. How long have you known about Celeste?" Serena's jaw tightened. "Since October." "October?" He laughed, a broken sound. "October. And you said nothing. You just... What? Planned this whole thing? Federal investigation, offshore accounts, destroying my company? I didn't destroy your company. You destroyed it when you started laundering money for criminals. I was trying to save it. Vale Capital was hemorrhaging clients. I needed capital. I needed liquidity. And yes, I made deals with people I shouldn't have. But I was trying to save what we built." "We?" Serena's voice was ice. "There is no we, Damien. There never was. It was always your company, your success, your empire. I was just the decorative wife who stood beside you in photographs." He flinched like she had hit him. "I never said that." "Yes, you did. April 19th, text to Celeste. She never notices anything. Serena's decorative." The color drained from Damien's face. "You read my messages." "I read everything. Every hotel reservation, every promise you made to her, every lie you told me." "So you decided to destroy me?" "No. I decided to stop being invisible." Silence filled the library like smoke. Damien stood up, paced to the window, his ankle monitor clicking softly with each step. "I'm facing 20 years in prison, Serena. 20 years. For what? For trying to save my company? For making mistakes? For stealing? For laundering money? For breaking the law? And you're innocent?" He turned to face her, and there was something dangerous in his eyes now, something she'd never seen before. You broke into my safe. You stole documents. You conspired with known criminals to frame me. I didn't frame you. I exposed you. With evidence obtained illegally. With evidence that proves you're guilty. I'm guilty of trying to survive in an industry that eats people alive if they show weakness. I'm guilty of making hard choices, but you... He stepped closer, and Serena's hand moved instinctively toward the door. You're guilty of betrayal. You're my wife. You're supposed to stand beside me, not destroy me. I stopped being your wife the moment I found out about Celeste. One affair, one mistake, and you decided that was worth burning down everything? Serena felt something crack inside her. It wasn't one affair, Damien. It was 7 years of you not seeing me. 7 years of you knowing what I wore and how I looked and where I stood in photographs, but never knowing who I actually was. You never asked what I wanted. You never asked if I was happy. You never even asked how I liked my coffee. What? My coffee. How do I like it? Damien stared at her blankly. See? Serena's voice broke. 7 years and you don't know. You never knew. Because I wasn't a person to you. I was a thing, a decoration, something that made you look good. That's not... When's my birthday, Damien? June something. June 23rd. What's my middle name? Silence. Do I have siblings? Do I like dogs or cats? What did I study in college? What's my favorite book? Serena, stop. You don't know. Her voice echoed through the house. You married me and you never bothered to know me. So yes, when I found out you were fucking your assistant and calling me decorative, I decided to stop being decorative. I decided to become something else. Someone you couldn't ignore. Damien's face had gone pale. So all of this, the investigation, the scandal, destroying my company, that was about getting my attention? No, it was about getting my freedom. By putting me in prison. By making sure you could never make me invisible again. Damien sank back into his chair, looking suddenly old. I loved you, he said quietly. No, you didn't. You loved the idea of me, the perfect wife, the beautiful accessory, but you never loved me. And now? What do you love now, Serena? Because from where I'm sitting, you've become exactly what you accused me of being, cold, calculating, willing to destroy people to get what you want. The words hit harder than they should have, because he wasn't entirely wrong. Serena had become something cold, something capable of watching her husband get arrested and feeling nothing except satisfaction, something that could partner with men like Nikolai Vorin and not flinch at the darkness required. Maybe I have, she said. Maybe that's what you made me. I made you? Damien laughed bitterly. I gave you everything, this house, this life, every advantage. You gave me a cage, and you called it love. Then why are you here? If you hate me so much, if I'm such a monster, why did you agree to meet? Serena didn't have an answer, or rather, she had too many answers, and none of them made sense. She was here because part of her wanted closure. Part of her wanted him to understand. Part of her wanted him to suffer the way she'd suffered, slowly, invisibly, until the pain became background noise. And part of her, some small broken part, wanted him to fight for her, to finally see her and refuse to let her go. But that was insane. That was the thinking of someone still trapped in the cage. I came because you asked, she said finally, and because I wanted to see if you'd finally understand what you did wrong. And do I? Serena looked at him, really looked at him, maybe for the first time in years. Saw the exhaustion, the fear, the desperate confusion of a man who'd built his entire identity on control and was watching it shatter. No, she said. You still don't get it. Then explain it to me. I can't. You either see people or you don't, and you never saw me. Damien was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that made Serena's blood run cold. What if I told you I could make all of this go away? What? The charges, the investigation, all of it. He leaned forward. I have information about Nikolai Vorin, about the people he works with, about operations that make my maritime laundering look like a parking ticket, information that federal prosecutors would kill for, Serena's heart stopped. What are you talking about? I'm talking about immunity, Serena. A deal. I give them Nikolai and everyone connected to him, and they drop the charges against me, wipe the slate clean. You're lying. I'm not. My new attorney has already approached the U.S. Attorney's Office. They're interested, very interested. His eyes were hard now, calculating. And part of that deal involves my wife standing beside me, the loyal spouse who believed in me, who knew nothing about my business dealings, who was as shocked as anyone when the arrests happened. Understanding crashed over Serena like ice water. You want me to lie for you. I want you to save us both. Because here's what you don't understand, Serena. If I go down, you go down with me. Reeves has enough evidence to prosecute you for conspiracy, for theft, for working with known criminals to destroy a legitimate business. You think Nikolai's your ally? He's using you. And the moment you're no longer useful, he'll throw you to the wolves. That's not true, isn't it? Ask yourself why he's helping you. Out of the goodness of his heart. Nikolai Vorin doesn't have a heart. He has interests. And right now you're serving his interests by destroying me. But what happens when that's done? What happens when the federal investigation turns toward him? Serena's hands were shaking. He wouldn't. He absolutely would. And you'll be the one who connected him to the evidence. You'll be the witness who proves he was involved, which means you'll either testify against him or go to prison for refusing. You're lying. You're trying to manipulate me. I'm trying to save you. Damien stood up, crossed to her. Serena, please. I know I hurt you. I know I took you for granted, but we can fix this together. We can make a deal, disappear the charges, start over. I'll be different. I'll see you. I promise. He reached for her hand. Serena pulled away. I don't believe you. Then believe this. In 72 hours, my attorney files immunity paperwork with the U.S. Attorney's Office. When that happens, Nikolai Vorin becomes the primary target of a federal investigation, and everyone connected to him, including you, becomes collateral damage. You have 3 days to decide whose side you're on. There are no sides. There's just the truth. The truth is a luxury neither of us can afford anymore. Damien walked back to his chair, picked up his scotch, and drained it. Go home, Serena. Think about what I've said. Think about whether destroying me is worth destroying yourself. Because that's where this ends. Both of us in prison or both of us free. Your choice. Serena turned and walked out of the library, down the hall, through the foyer, out the door into the cold December night. She made it to the car before her legs gave out. Nikolai was there in seconds, catching her before she hit the pavement. What happened? He knows, Serena gasped. He knows about you. He has information. He's making a deal. Nikolai's expression went utterly flat. Get in the car. They drove in silence for 10 minutes before Nikolai spoke. Did he say what kind of information? He said it was about your operations, about people you work with. He said it would make the prosecutors forget about him. And he wants you to support his story. Yes. Nikolai was quiet, his jaw working like he was chewing glass. Then he said something that made Serena's stomach drop. He's not wrong. What? About the information. About the deal. I've been expecting this. Nikolai pulled out his phone, sent a rapid series of texts. Damien's smarter than I gave him credit for. He figured out that the fastest way to save himself is to give the feds a bigger fish. And I'm a much bigger fish. So what do? We. There is no we anymore, Serena. The words hit like a slap. What are you talking about? Nikolai pulled the car over, turned to face her. You need to disappear. Tonight. I'll give you money, new documents, contacts in 3 different countries. But you need to go now before Damien's deal goes through and you become a material witness in a case against me. You're abandoning me. I'm protecting you. There's a difference. You said, you promised. I promised I'd help you destroy your husband. I did that. What happens next is survival, and survival means you run. Serena felt like she was drowning. I can't run. I can't spend the rest of my life hiding. Then you go to the FBI. You tell them everything. You testify against Damien. You testify against me, and maybe they give you immunity. But probably they don't. Probably they send you to prison for 5 to 10 and call it justice. Those can't be the only options. They're not. You could also do what Damien suggested. Stand beside him. Support his immunity deal. Let him give the feds what they want, and you both walk away clean. That would mean lying. Yes, That would mean betraying you. Yes, I can't do that. Nikolai's smile was thin and utterly without warmth. Then I guess you've already made your choice. The question is whether you can live with it. He pulled back into traffic, and they drove the rest of the way to the hotel in silence. When they arrived, Nikolai handed her an envelope. 50,000 cash. Passport under a different name. Contact information for people who can help you disappear. You have until tomorrow night to decide what you're going to do. After that, I'm gone, and you're on your own. Just like that? After everything? This was never personal, Serena. It was business. You wanted revenge on your husband. I wanted my money back and a competitor eliminated. We helped each other, but now the game's changed and we're on opposite sides. I thought, what? That we were friends, partners. Nikolai's laugh was cold. We're two people who used each other to get what we wanted. Don't confuse that with loyalty. He drove away without another word. Serena stood on the sidewalk holding an envelope full of money and lies, watching the taillights disappear into Manhattan traffic, and felt the last piece of her old life crumble into ash. She'd destroyed her husband. She'd partnered with criminals. She'd become someone unrecognizable. And now she was completely alone, with 3 impossible choices and less than 24 hours to decide which one would kill her slowest. Inside her hotel room, Serena pulled the wire from her bra and the camera from her necklace and threw them both in the trash. Then she pulled out the envelope Nikolai had given her and counted the money. $50,000. A passport that said her name was Catherine Mills, and a phone number written on a slip of paper. No explanation, just the number. Serena stared at it for a long time. Then she picked up her burner phone and dialed. It rang 3 times. A woman answered. Yes? Nikolai gave me this number. A pause. Are you the wife? I used to be. Where do you want to go? Serena looked around the hotel room. Expensive, anonymous, temporary. A place for people passing through, people with no anchor, no home. She thought about Damien's offer. Stand beside him, lie for him, walk away clean. She thought about Nikolai's offer. Run, disappear, become someone else. She thought about Vivian's offer. Testify, fight, hope for immunity that probably wouldn't come. 3 doors, all of them leading to different versions of hell. And then Serena thought about something else. About the woman who'd unlocked her husband's phone on an October afternoon and decided to stop being invisible. About the woman who'd walked into a restaurant and met with people who operated in darkness. About the woman who'd spent a month destroying an empire while smiling at charity luncheons. That woman hadn't run. That woman hadn't lied. That woman had walked directly into fire because she'd decided that being invisible was worse than being burned. Serena hung up the phone, dropped the passport in the trash with the surveillance equipment, and started planning something that would either save her or end her completely. Because she'd just realized something that changed everything. She didn't have to choose between Damien's deal, Nikolai's escape route, or the FBI's mercy. There was a 4th option. An option that would require her to become something even colder than what she'd already become. An option that would destroy everyone, Damien, Nikolai, maybe even herself. But it was the only option that ended with the truth. And Serena had spent 7 years living in lies. She was done. Outside, December snow began falling over Manhattan, covering the city in white lies, while Serena Hale sat in a hotel room and planned the kind of betrayal that would make what she'd already done look like mercy. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning. And this time, there would be no survivors. Serena called Naomi Mercer at 2 a.m. The federal investigator answered on the 4th ring, her voice thick with sleep and suspicion. This better be important. It is. I need to meet, now. A pause, the sound of sheets rustling. It's 2 a.m. I know what time it is. I also know Damien Vale is about to give you the biggest case of your career, and I'm the only person who can stop him from walking away clean. That got Naomi's attention. Where are you? The Whitmore Hotel, room 2317. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Don't talk to anyone. Don't leave. Don't do anything stupid. The line went dead. Serena sat on the edge of the bed, her hands shaking so badly she had to clench them into fists. Outside, snow was still falling over Manhattan, like the city was being erased one flake at a time. She'd spent the last 3 hours mapping it out. Every move, every consequence, every way this could end with her in prison or dead or worse. But there was one path through. One narrow, vicious path that required her to become something she'd never been before. Not invisible, not decorative, not even cold. Something that could look at 3 different kinds of destruction and choose all of them simultaneously. Naomi arrived in 26 minutes, wearing jeans and an FBI jacket over what looked like pajamas, her hair pulled back in a messy knot. She had the exhausted intensity of someone who'd been working a case nonstop and was surviving on coffee and rage. "Talk," she said, not bothering with pleasantries. Serena handed her the recordings from The Wire. Everything Damien said tonight, including his plan to offer you Nikolai Vorin in exchange for immunity. Naomi plugged the device into her laptop, pulled on headphones, and listened. Serena watched her face change as the recording played. Watched realization hit. Watched the predatory focus of a federal investigator who'd just been handed ammunition. When it finished, Naomi pulled off the headphones. Son of a bitch. He's going to make the deal, isn't he? Not if I can help it. But he's right about one thing. Nikolai Vorin is a bigger target. If Damien has actual evidence connecting Vorin to international money laundering, trafficking, racketeering, my bosses will want that deal. Even if it means letting Damien walk? Even then. That's how it works. Small fish give up big fish. Justice gets served selectively. Naomi's expression was grim. But it doesn't have to work that way. What do you mean? I mean, if we can prove that Damien's evidence against Vorin is tainted, obtained through criminal conspiracy, for example, then it becomes inadmissible, which means the deal falls apart. Serena's pulse kicked. How do we prove that? We'd need evidence that Damien obtained the information illegally, wiretaps without warrants, stolen documents, something that poisons the well. Naomi looked at Serena directly. Do you know how he got his information on Vorin? This was it. The moment Serena had been building toward. Yes, she said quietly. I do. She pulled out her phone, opened the encrypted folder she'd spent the last 3 hours compiling. Photographs, audio recordings, document scans, everything. Damien didn't discover Nikolai's criminal operations through legitimate channels, Serena said. He discovered them because he was participating in them. Vale Capital was laundering money for the same operations Nikolai runs. They were partners, and when the investigation started closing in, Damien decided to save himself by burning his partner. Naomi's eyes went wide. You can prove this? Every transaction, every meeting, every communication between Damien and Nikolai's organization over the last 3 years. Serena handed her the phone. It's all here. Naomi scrolled through the files, her expression shifting from shock to something almost predatory. Where did you get this? I've been gathering evidence since October. Some from Damien's files. Some from Nikolai. Some from places I probably shouldn't have been. That's not an answer. It's the only answer you're getting. The question is whether you want to use it. Naomi was quiet for a long moment, her jaw working like she was chewing through a problem that had teeth. If I use this, it destroys your husband's immunity deal. But it also destroys any case we might build against Vorin using this evidence. You understand that, right? We can't prosecute Vorin with tainted evidence. I know. So you're willing to let Vorin walk to make sure Damien doesn't? Serena thought about Nikolai's cold dismissal. This was never personal. It was business. Nikolai doesn't walk, she said. He just gets prosecuted differently. How? I testify against both of them. Everything I know, everything I can prove. You build separate cases, one against Damien for the original charges plus conspiracy to obstruct justice. One against Nikolai for everything he's actually guilty of. No immunity deals, no shortcuts, just the truth. And where does that leave you? Probably in prison, but I'll have immunity for my cooperation, won't I? Naomi's expression was unreadable. Maybe. If my bosses agree. If you're credible. If you don't get torn apart on cross-examination by attorneys who specialize in destroying witnesses. Then I'll survive the cross-examination. You sound very sure of yourself. I'm not sure of anything, but I know I can't live the rest of my life running or lying or pretending I didn't do what I did. Serena's voice was steady, cold. I destroyed my husband's life. I partnered with criminals. I broke laws. And now I'm going to stand in front of a court and admit all of it, and hope that telling the truth is enough to keep me out of prison. Naomi studied her for a long moment. You know what you're doing, right? You're not just testifying against your husband and his criminal partner. You're testifying against yourself, admitting to conspiracy, to theft, to evidence tampering. Even with immunity, your life is over. Your reputation, your privacy, everything. The media will eat you alive. I know. Then why? The same question Damien had asked, the same question Serena had been asking herself for weeks. Because being invisible was worse, she said simply. Naomi looked at her like she was seeing her clearly for the first time. Okay, she said, I'll take this to my supervisor in the morning. If he agrees, we move fast. Arrest warrants for both Damien and Nikolai before either of them can make a deal. Can you be ready to testify within 48 hours? Yes. And you understand there's no going back from this? The moment we arrest them, you become the key witness in two massive federal cases. Your life becomes a deposition. You'll spend months in court, in witness prep, in testimony. And at the end of it, if we win, you'll still be the woman who destroyed her husband and betrayed her criminal partner. That's your legacy. Serena thought about 7 years of being decorative, 7 years of invisibility, 7 years of living as someone else's idea of who she should be. Better than the alternative, she said. Naomi packed up her laptop. I'll call you by noon tomorrow. Don't leave the hotel. Don't contact Damien or Nikolai. Don't talk to anyone. And Serena? Yes? If you're lying to me, if any of this is fabricated or manipulated, I will personally make sure you spend the next decade in federal prison. Understood? Understood. Naomi left. Serena sat alone in the hotel room, watching dawn break over Manhattan, and tried to prepare herself for what came next. War. Real war. Not the quiet dismantling she'd orchestrated over the last month, but open conflict with no rules and no mercy. She'd just declared war on everyone, her husband, her partner, herself. And wars ended with casualties. The call came at 11:45 a.m. It's on, Naomi said without preamble. My supervisor loves the evidence. Arrest warrants are being prepared for both Vale and Voren. We execute them simultaneously tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I need you at the federal building by 4 to prep your testimony. Tomorrow? We move fast or they disappear. Damien's already spooked. Voren has resources we can't track. This is our only window. Serena's hands were shaking. Okay. And Serena? Bring everything. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence you have. We're building these cases from the ground up, and you're the foundation. If you're not solid, the whole thing collapses. I'll be there. Naomi hung up. Serena sat on the bed, staring at her phone, trying to process the fact that in less than 24 hours, federal agents would be arresting the man she'd married and the man who'd helped her destroy him. And she would be the reason why. Her phone buzzed. Text from Vivian. Heard from Naomi. You're insane, also brave, also possibly suicidal. Call me. Serena didn't call. Instead, she spent the afternoon organizing evidence, printing documents, labeling recordings, building a timeline that would explain to a jury exactly how Damien Vale had gone from successful financier to money launderer to desperate criminal trying to save himself by destroying everyone around him. At 4 p.m., someone knocked on her door. Serena looked through the peephole, a young woman in a hotel uniform, holding an envelope. Delivery for Ms. Hale. Serena opened the door a crack, chain still latched. I didn't order anything. It was left at the front desk. They said it was urgent. The woman held up the envelope. Expensive paper. Serena's name written in handwriting she recognized immediately. Damien's. Serena took it, tipped the woman, and closed the door. Inside the envelope was a single page. Handwritten. Serena, I know what you're planning. I know you met with the FBI. I know you're going to testify against me. Please don't. Not because I'm asking for mercy I don't deserve, but because you need to understand what happens if you do this. The people Nikolai works with, the real players behind the money laundering operations. They don't accept losses. They don't forgive betrayal. And they don't care about federal protection. If you testify, you won't just destroy me. You'll paint a target on your back that will follow you for the rest of your life. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to save you. There's still time to stop this, still time to walk away. We can both disappear. New identities, new country. I have resources the feds don't know about. I can get us both out. Meet me tonight, midnight. The same place we got married, St. Catherine's Garden. Come alone. Give me one chance to explain why walking away is the only option that keeps you alive. Please, Serena, I'm begging you. D. Serena read the letter 3 times. Then she pulled out her burner phone and called Naomi. Damien just tried to contact me. He wants to meet tonight at midnight. Absolutely not. You stay away from him. He knows I'm testifying. He's trying to stop me. Even more reason to stay away. He's desperate, which makes him dangerous. Or it makes him vulnerable. What if I wear a wire? What if I get him to admit things on tape that strengthen your case? Serena, he's meeting me at the place where we got married. It's a public garden. I'll have agents positioned around the perimeter. He can't hurt me there. You're not law enforcement. You're a civilian witness. I can't authorize... You don't have to authorize it. I'm just telling you where I'll be at midnight. What you do with that information is up to you. Serena hung up before Naomi could respond. Then she sat down and wrote her own letter. Not to Damien, not to Nikolai, to herself. A record of what she was about to do and why. Because if tonight went wrong, if Damien was more dangerous than she thought, if the meeting was a trap, if everything collapsed, she wanted someone to know the truth, that she'd chosen this, that she'd walked into the fire willingly, that whatever happened next was her decision, not anyone else's. She sealed the letter in an envelope, wrote Vivian's name on it, and left it on the hotel desk with instructions for the front desk to deliver it if she didn't return by morning. Then Serena changed into jeans and a black sweater, checked the wire the FBI technician had reinstalled that afternoon, and prepared to meet her husband one final time in the place where they'd promised to love each other until death. Turned out death was coming faster than either of them had expected. St. Catherine's Garden was closed for the season, the gates locked, but Serena knew the side entrance that was always broken. She'd discovered it years ago during a charity event, back when she'd still been decorative and invisible and looking for places to hide from crowds that never saw her anyway. The garden was empty, silent except for wind moving through bare trees and the distant sound of traffic on the avenue. Serena walked the stone path toward the gazebo where she and Damien had exchanged vows 7 years ago. Back when she'd believed in forever, back when she'd thought love was enough, before she'd learned that love without being seen was just another kind of disappearing. Damien was already there, standing in the gazebo, hands in his pockets, looking more like a ghost than a man. The ankle monitor was gone. He'd cut it off. Federal supervision be damned. He was running, or preparing to. You came, he said. You asked me to. I wasn't sure you would. After everything. Serena stopped at the bottom of the gazebo steps, maintaining distance. Somewhere in the trees, FBI agents were positioning themselves. Naomi had agreed to surveillance despite her objections. The wire was recording everything. What do you want, Damien? To understand why you hate me enough to destroy both of us. I don't hate you. I just don't love you anymore. When did that happen? When did I lose you? Serena thought about standing barefoot on Italian marble, holding a phone full of betrayals. October 19th, 2:15 in the afternoon, the moment I read the word decorative. Damien flinched. One word, one stupid, thoughtless word in a text message I didn't mean. You meant it. Maybe not consciously, maybe not cruelly, but you meant it, because it was true. I was decorative to you. I was the beautiful wife who made you look good at events. I was furniture that happened to have a pulse. That's not... When's my middle name, Damien? He went quiet. 7 years. You never knew. You never asked. You married me and you never bothered to learn who I actually was. So you decided to destroy me. I decided to stop being invisible. The destruction was just a consequence. Damien stepped down from the gazebo, moving closer. Serena's hand moved instinctively to her phone, ready to signal for help. But Damien just looked tired, broken. I loved you, he said. Maybe not the way you needed. Maybe not in a way that made you feel seen. But I did love you, Serena. In my way. Your way wasn't enough. And this is? Testifying against me? Sending me to prison? Partnering with people who will kill you the moment you're not useful anymore? Nikolai won't kill me. Not Nikolai. The people he works for. The real money behind the operations. You think you've been fighting me and Nikolai? You've been fighting an organization that spans 5 countries and moves billions of dollars, and now you've made yourself a problem they need to solve. You're trying to scare me. I'm trying to save you, Damien's voice cracked. Come with me, right now. I have a plane waiting. We can be in Sao Paulo by morning, new names, new lives. We start over. I don't want to start over with you. Then start over alone. Just don't testify. Please, Serena, walk away from this. Why? So you can make a deal and walk free while I spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder? So we both survive. That's all I want. Both of us alive and free. You want us alive so you don't have to face what you did. So you don't have to admit that you destroyed our marriage long before I destroyed you. Fine. Damien's composure finally cracked. Fine. I destroyed our marriage. I was a terrible husband. I took you for granted. I called you decorative. I cheated on you. I did everything you're accusing me of. I'm guilty. Are you happy now? No. Because guilt without consequences isn't justice. It's just words. What do you want from me? What will it take for you to stop? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. That you can't steal money and betray your wife and partner with criminals and then walk away because you're rich and connected and male. I want you to face what you did. Even if it kills you? Even then. Damien stared at her for a long moment. Then he pulled something from his pocket. Serena's blood went cold. A gun. Small, black. The kind of weapon people carried for protection or murder, depending on their intentions. Put that away, Serena said, her voice steady despite her heart trying to hammer through her ribs. I can't let you testify, Damien said quietly. I'm sorry. I really am, but I can't go to prison for 20 years because you needed to feel seen. Damien, this isn't personal. It's survival. You understand that, right? You did what you had to do. I'm doing what I have to do. If you kill me, you'll never make it out of this garden. Federal agents are surrounding us right now. I know. I'm not stupid. I saw them positioning themselves, which means this ends badly for both of us. Damien raised the gun. But at least if you're dead, you can't testify. At least I have a chance. Serena couldn't breathe. This was how it ended. Not in a courtroom, not with justice, just with violence in a garden where they'd once promised forever. You won't do it, she said. You're not a killer. Neither were you, until you became one. I never killed anyone. You killed me, Serena. You killed the man I was. You killed my reputation, my company, my future. So what's one more death? His finger moved to the trigger, and then someone else stepped out of the shadows. Nikolai. Moving fast and silent, his hand catching Damien's wrist before the gun could fire, twisting until the weapon clattered to the stone path. Damien screamed and swung wild. Nikolai dodged easily, drove a fist into Damien's solar plexus, then swept his legs and put him down hard on the ground. Federal agents materialized from the trees, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Gun on the ground! Hands where we can see them! Nikolai stepped back, hands raised, as agents swarmed Damien. Serena stood frozen, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Damien had tried to kill her. Nikolai had saved her. Nothing made sense anymore. Naomi appeared beside Serena, checking her for injuries. You okay? Yes, I think so. That was insane. You could have died. But I didn't. Agents were hauling Damien to his feet, zip-tying his hands, reading him his rights. He looked at Serena with eyes that held nothing except hatred now. This isn't over, he said. You think you won? You didn't win. You just bought yourself time, and when that runs out... An agent shoved him forward, cutting off the threat. Serena watched them lead her husband away. The man she'd married, the man who'd just tried to murder her, and felt absolutely nothing. Naomi was right. She'd become something cold, something that could watch a man's life end and feel only the mechanical satisfaction of a plan executing correctly. Nikolai was being questioned by agents 20 feet away, his expression bored, his hand still raised. He caught Serena's eye and nodded once, a simple gesture that meant, "You're welcome." And also, "We're not done," because Nikolai Vorin had just saved her life in front of federal witnesses, which complicated everything. Naomi pulled Serena aside. "We need to go. Now. Debriefing, witness protection protocols, everything. This case just went from complex to catastrophic. What about Nikolai? What about him? He saved my life. He also committed multiple federal crimes that you're supposed to testify about. One good deed doesn't erase that. Naomi's expression was hard. Unless you're having second thoughts? Serena looked at Nikolai, looked at the agents surrounding him, looked at the garden where she'd gotten married and almost gotten killed. No, she said. No second thoughts. Then let's go. They drove back to the federal building in silence. Serena sat in the back of an unmarked car, watching the city scroll past, trying to understand what had just happened. Damien had tried to kill her. The man she'd lived with for 7 years had looked at her with a gun in his hand and decided murder was easier than consequences. And some part of her, some sick, broken part, wasn't even surprised, because that was what happened when you made invisible people suddenly visible. They burned so bright they destroyed everyone around them. At the federal building, Naomi led Serena through security, down corridors that smelled like institutional coffee and fluorescent lighting, into a conference room with no windows and a table that could seat 12. Sit, Naomi said. Don't move. Don't call anyone. I'll be back in 10 minutes. She left. Serena sat alone in the conference room, her hands shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off, her mind replaying the moment Damien had raised the gun. He would have done it. If Nikolai hadn't stopped him, Damien would have killed her right there in the garden where they'd exchanged vows. The door opened. Not Naomi. Nikolai. He walked in like he owned the building, closed the door, and sat across from her. You're not supposed to be here, Serena said. I'm not supposed to be a lot of places. Hasn't stopped me yet. How did you... I told them I needed to speak with you about tonight's events. They'll give us 5 minutes before they remember I'm not actually cooperating. Nikolai's expression was unreadable. Are you hurt? No, thanks to you. Don't thank me yet. We have a problem. Just one? I saved your life in front of federal witnesses, which means when you testify against me, the jury hears that I protected you from your husband who was trying to kill you. Makes me look like a hero instead of a criminal. You are a criminal. Yes, but I'm also the reason you're breathing right now. That complicates your testimony, doesn't it? Serena understood what he was saying. You saved me, so I'd owe you. No, I saved you because letting you die would have been wasteful. You're too interesting to waste. Nikolai leaned forward. But now we're in a position where we need each other. You need me to corroborate parts of your testimony about Damien. I need you to frame my involvement in a way that doesn't result in me spending the next 20 years in federal prison. You want me to lie for you? I want you to tell the truth selectively. Emphasize what helps. Omit what hurts. Standard witness strategy. I'm not doing that. Then you'll send me to prison for helping you get revenge on a man who just tried to murder you. That's the gratitude I get? You didn't help me out of kindness. You helped me because I was useful. And you partnered with me because you wanted revenge. We both used each other. The difference is I'm not pretending otherwise. Serena was quiet, because he wasn't wrong. She had used Nikolai, had partnered with a criminal because destroying Damien required criminal methods. And now she was supposed to testify that Nikolai was guilty while conveniently omitting her own complicity. What are you asking me to do? She said finally. Testify honestly about Damien. He tried to kill you. He deserves everything coming to him. But when it comes to me, emphasize that I was protecting my financial interests, not actively laundering money. Frame it as business recovery, not criminal conspiracy. That's still lying. It's nuance. It's the difference between 20 years and 5 years. And 5 years I can survive. Why should I help you? Because you owe me your life, because without me you'd be dead in a garden right now. And because... Nikolai paused, something shifting in his expression. Because you're not like the others, Serena. You're not another bitter socialite who wanted revenge and then collapsed. You went to war and you didn't break. That's rare. And I'd hate to see you waste it by becoming another federal witness who disappears into protection and spends the rest of her life being nobody again. The words hit harder than they should have. What are you saying? I'm saying there's a life after this. After the trials, after the testimony, after everything burns down. And you could have a place in it if you're smart enough to survive the fire. With you? With the people I work with. The organization you've been fighting. They respect capability. They respect ruthlessness. And you've proven you have both. Serena stared at him. You're recruiting me? I'm offering you a future that isn't witness protection or poverty or spending the rest of your life explaining why you destroyed your husband. You could become something else, someone powerful, someone who never has to be decorative again. By becoming a criminal, by becoming free. There's a difference. The door opened. Naomi walked in, saw Nikolai, and her expression went nuclear. What the hell is he doing in here? Leaving, Nikolai said, standing smoothly. He looked at Serena one more time. Think about it. You have until the trial to decide who you want to be after this is over. He walked out. Naomi slammed the door. What did he say to you? He wants me to protect him when I testify. And? And I told him no. Naomi studied her face, looking for the lie. If you're compromised, if he's gotten to you, I need to know now. I'm not compromised. I'm just tired. Then go home. Get some sleep. Be back here at 8 a.m. tomorrow. We have a long day ahead. Serena nodded, but she didn't go back to the hotel. Instead, she walked through Manhattan as dawn broke, watching the city wake up, trying to understand what she'd become. A woman who'd destroyed her husband. A woman who'd partnered with criminals. A woman who'd been offered a place in an organization that operated in darkness and called it freedom. And the worst part, the part that made her stomach turn, was that she was actually considering it. Because Nikolai was right. What came after the trials? After she testified? After Damien went to prison? After everything burned down? What was left for Serena Hale? Witness protection? A new name in a small town somewhere? Living in fear that Damien's enemies would find her? Poverty? Whatever money she might have gotten in the divorce was now evidence in a criminal case. Notoriety? The woman who destroyed her billionaire husband. Infamous forever. None of those futures felt like freedom. They felt like different kinds of cages. But Nikolai's offer, becoming part of something larger, something powerful, something that operated beyond the rules that had failed her, that felt like the kind of freedom that might actually be worth the cost. Serena stopped walking. She was standing in front of the Blackthorn Regency, the hotel where the Vail Foundation Gala was scheduled to happen in 3 days, where Damien was supposed to have given his annual speech about integrity and leadership, where 800 people were supposed to celebrate a man who just tried to murder his wife. The gala was canceled now, obviously. Damien was in federal custody. The foundation board had issued a statement about postponement due to unforeseen circumstances. But Serena stood looking at the building and realized something that made her blood run cold. She wasn't done. The federal case would take months, maybe years. Damien would fight it with every resource he had left. Lawyers would delay. Motions would be filed. And through it all, the truth would get buried under procedure and technicality and the grinding machinery of a justice system designed to protect people like Damien Vail. But there was another kind of justice, the kind that happened in public, in front of cameras, in front of the same people who'd celebrated Damien for years. Serena pulled out her phone and called Vivian. It's 6 in the morning, Vivian answered groggily. The gala. Is it definitely canceled? What? Yes, of course it's canceled. Damien's in federal custody and tried to murder you last night. What if it wasn't canceled? What if it happened exactly as planned? Serena, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the perfect opportunity. 800 people, media coverage, every donor and client and investor who ever supported Damien Vail, all in one room. What if I walked into that room and told them everything? Silence on the line. Then, that's insane. It's perfect. It's dangerous. It's reckless. Vivian paused. Actually, it's brilliant, but also insane. Can you make it happen? Make what happen? The gala's canceled. The venue's been released. The caterers have been paid and dismissed. You can't just... I'm not talking about the actual gala. I'm talking about a press conference. Same date, same location, same time. I stand in front of cameras and I tell the truth about Damien, about Nikolai, about everything. The FBI will never allow it. You're a witness in an ongoing case. The FBI doesn't control what I say to the press. Not yet. Not until the trial actually starts. Serena. Make it happen, Vivian, please. 3 days from now. Blackthorn Regency, 8 p.m. I'll handle the rest. This could destroy your case. If you say something wrong, If you compromise the investigation, then I'll deal with the consequences. But I'm done being quiet. I'm done letting other people control the narrative. This is my story, and I'm going to tell it my way. She hung up before Vivian could argue further. Then Serena stood in front of the Blackthorn Regency as the sun rose over Manhattan and began planning the final act. Not in a courtroom, not behind closed doors, but in front of everyone who'd ever called her decorative and meant it. In 3 days, the world would finally see Serena Hale. And when they did, nothing would ever be the same again. The Blackthorn Regency Ballroom had been transformed in 72 hours, from celebration venue to execution chamber. Not literally, though the metaphor wasn't far off. Vivian had worked miracles. The venue management agreed to host the press conference after she pointed out that hosting it would generate more publicity than any canceled gala ever could. News outlets fought for camera positions. Reporters lined the walls like witnesses at a hanging. Every major network, every financial publication, every gossip blog that had ever covered Damien Vale's glittering life. They were about to cover its ending. Serena stood backstage at 7:45 p.m., wearing a simple black dress that cost $40 from a department store. No jewelry except the necklace her mother had given her before she died, the only thing that felt real anymore. Her hair was pulled back, minimal makeup, nothing decorative. Just a woman preparing to burn down everything she'd ever been in front of 800 empty chairs and 2 million people watching via live stream. Vivian appeared beside her, tablet in hand, looking simultaneously proud and terrified. "Last chance to back out," she said. "FBI is already furious. Naomi called me 6 times in the last hour, threatening to charge you with obstruction. You do this, you might torpedo the entire federal case." "Then they'll have to build a better case," Serena said. "That's not how it works." "I don't care how it works. I care about the truth being told correctly." Vivian studied her face. "You've changed. Since that first meeting at Sorella, you were scared then, angry but scared. Now you're just cold?" "I was going to say clear, like you finally know exactly who you are." Serena looked at her reflection in a backstage mirror. The woman staring back was someone she barely recognized. Not the decorative wife, not the invisible woman. Someone harder. Someone who'd walked through fire and came out forged instead of burned. "I know what I'm not," Serena said. "That's close enough." At 7:58, the stage manager gave her the 2-minute warning. Serena walked to the wings, looking out at the ballroom. The chairs were empty. This wasn't that kind of event, but cameras covered every angle. Lights blazed. The podium stood center stage like an altar. This was where Damien was supposed to have given his annual speech about integrity and leadership and giving back. Instead, his wife was about to explain exactly what kind of man he actually was. The irony was almost beautiful. At 8 p.m. exactly, Serena walked onto the stage. The camera flashes started immediately. Questions shouted from reporters. The chaos of media sensing blood in the water. Serena stepped to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and waited. The noise slowly died. When the ballroom was silent except for breathing and camera shutters, Serena began. "My name is Serena Hale. 7 years ago, it was Serena Vale. Some of you know me as the wife of Damien Vale, currently in federal custody, awaiting trial on charges of money laundering, wire fraud, and racketeering. Some of you don't know me at all, which makes sense. I spent 7 years being invisible." Her voice was steady, cold, the voice of someone past fear. "I'm here tonight to tell you 3 things. First, my husband is guilty of every charge against him. I know because I found the evidence. I photographed documents from his private safe. I recorded conversations. I gathered transaction records that prove he was laundering money for criminal organizations through maritime shell corporations. Everything the federal government is charging him with is true, and I can prove it." Murmurs rippled through the press corps. Serena continued. "Second, I was not an innocent bystander. I knew what I was doing when I gathered that evidence. I knew it was illegal. I knew I was breaking into his property and stealing documents. I did it anyway because my husband was also guilty of betraying me with a woman named Celeste Arden, his executive assistant. I found messages, hotel reservations, years of lies, and one text message where he called me decorative." Her voice didn't crack, didn't waver. That word changed everything. Because it was true. I was decorative to him. I was the beautiful wife who stood beside him at events like this one, wearing expensive clothes and performing happiness while slowly disappearing inside a marriage that had stopped being real years before either of us admitted it. So yes, I destroyed my husband out of revenge. I partnered with people I shouldn't have trusted. I broke laws. And I'd do it again. The ballroom was absolutely silent now. But here's the third thing, and this is why I'm really here. 48 hours ago, my husband tried to kill me. Gasps. Camera flashes intensifying. He lured me to a meeting in a public garden where we'd gotten married. He brought a gun. He told me he couldn't let me testify against him, that his survival was more important than my life, and he would have shot me if someone hadn't intervened. Federal agents arrested him. The attempt was recorded. It's all on tape. Serena gripped the podium, her knuckles white. So when people ask me why I destroyed Damien Vale's life, here's my answer. I didn't destroy his life. I revealed it. I showed everyone who he actually was underneath the philanthropy and the success and the expensive suits. A man who stole money, who betrayed his wife, who tried to murder someone rather than face consequences. That's who Damien Vale is. That's who he's always been. I just made sure everyone finally saw it. She paused, letting the words sink in. But I also need you to understand something. I'm not a hero. I'm not some brave woman who stood up to a monster. I'm someone who became cold enough to do terrible things because I decided being invisible was worse than being damned. I partnered with criminals. I lied to people who trusted me. I manipulated federal investigators. And when I testify in court, I'll admit all of that, because the truth matters more than my reputation. A reporter shouted a question. Serena ignored it. There's been speculation about my involvement with a man named Nikolai Vorin, about whether I was coerced or manipulated into helping destroy my husband. Let me be clear. I chose to work with Nikolai Vorin. I sought him out. I asked for his help. He provided resources and expertise, and in exchange, I gave him access to information about my husband's criminal operations. We were partners, not victim and manipulator. Partners. More questions, louder now. I'm also here to announce that I'm divorcing Damien Vale. The papers were filed this morning. I'm seeking no financial settlement, no alimony, nothing from the marriage except my freedom. Everything Damien owns is evidence in a criminal case anyway. I don't want it. I don't want anything that came from a life built on lies. Serena looked directly into the main camera. To everyone who knew me as Mrs. Damien Vale, as the decorative wife, as the woman who smiled at your fundraisers and charity dinners and never said anything meaningful. I'm sorry I wasn't honest sooner. I'm sorry I performed happiness instead of demanding it, and I'm sorry that it took me 7 years to realize that being invisible was a choice I was making every day by staying quiet. Her throat tightened, but she pushed through. To the women who are living the life I lived, who feel invisible in their own marriages, who wonder if their partners see them as people or accessories, who are afraid that demanding to be seen makes them difficult or ungrateful. You're not crazy. Your feelings are real. And staying quiet doesn't make things better. It just makes you disappear slowly until one day you wake up and realize you've been gone for years. Serena stepped back from the podium. I won't be taking questions. Everything I needed to say, I've said. The federal case against my husband will proceed. I'll testify honestly about what I know and what I did. And after that, I don't know what comes next for me. But whatever it is, it will be mine. Not performed, not decorative, just real. She walked off the stage. The ballroom erupted behind her, questions shouting over each other, cameras flashing like lightning, the chaos of a story that would dominate news cycles for months. Serena kept walking, through the backstage area, down a service corridor, out a side exit into December cold that hit her lungs like glass. Vivian was waiting beside a car, looking shell-shocked. That was... She struggled for words. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever witnessed. Probably both, Serena said. The FBI is going to eviscerate you. Naomi called twice during your speech. She sounded homicidal. Let her be angry. I told the truth. You also potentially compromised witness testimony in 2 federal cases. That's not nothing, Serena. I know, but it was worth it. Vivian studied her face. Was it? Because you just painted a target on yourself that will never disappear. Every news organization in the country will dig into your life. Every mistake you've ever made will get analyzed. You'll spend years being the woman who destroyed Damien Vale. That's your legacy now. Better than being invisible. They drove through Manhattan in silence, watching the city scroll past. Somewhere, Serena's press conference was being dissected by pundits and lawyers and armchair experts who would spend weeks debating whether she was a hero or a villain or something more complicated. She didn't care anymore. The only opinion that mattered was her own, and for the first time in 7 years, Serena looked at herself clearly and didn't hate what she saw. Not innocent, not pure, not even particularly good, just free. The car stopped at Vivian's office building. "Come upstairs," Vivian said. "We need to prepare for the fallout. FBI's probably going to want to interview you again, maybe arrest you for obstruction. We should—" "No," Serena said. "No? I need to do something first, alone." Vivian looked worried. "Serena, if you're thinking about running—" "I'm not running, I'm finishing it." Before Vivian could respond, Serena got out of the car and walked, not toward her hotel, not toward anywhere safe, toward the last conversation she needed to have before this was truly over. The federal detention center was gray concrete and fluorescent lighting, and the smell of industrial cleaning products failing to mask decades of human despair. Serena sat in a visiting room at 9:30 p.m., waiting. She'd called in every favor Vivian had with the U.S. Attorney's Office to arrange this meeting. Technically, she wasn't supposed to have contact with Damien before the trial. Technically, this violated about 16 different protocols. But Serena had stopped caring about protocols around the same time she'd started photographing her husband's safe. The door opened. Damien walked in wearing orange jumpsuit and ankle chains, looking like someone had taken him apart and reassembled him wrong. His hair was greasy, his face unshaven. The confidence that had defined him for 40 years was just gone, leaving behind something hollow and afraid. He sat across from her, hands cuffed in front of him, and said nothing. The guard closed the door but stayed inside, watching. Serena and Damien stared at each other across a table that might as well have been miles wide. "I saw your press conference," Damien said finally. His voice was rough, broken. "Everyone here saw it. They played it in the common room. 80 men watching my wife destroy me on live television." "Good," Serena said. "You should know what it feels like. To be humiliated? To be invisible while everyone watches you disappear." Damien's jaw tightened. "I never tried to make you invisible." "You never tried to see me. That's the same thing." "So this is what you wanted? Me in prison? You on television telling the world I'm a monster?" "I wanted you to understand what you did to me, to us, to the life we could have had if you'd bothered to know who I actually was. I knew who you were. When's my middle name?" Damien went quiet. 7 years, Serena said softly. "You never knew. You never asked. You married a woman you never bothered to learn. So you decided to destroy me. I decided to stop being decorative." Damien slumped in his chair, chains clinking. "I would have changed. If you'd told me. If you'd said something instead of just—" He gestured vaguely at everything. "This. Would you? Really? Or would you have promised to change and then gradually gone back to the same patterns because change is hard, and I was convenient? I guess we'll never know now." "No, we won't." They sat in silence for a long moment, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, the guard shifting his weight by the door. Finally, Damien said, "I loved you. I know you don't believe me. I know I didn't show it the way you needed. But I did love you, Serena." "I know," she said. That surprised him. "You do?" "Yes. But your love wasn't enough. It was incomplete. It was the love of someone who wanted a beautiful wife but not a real person. And I needed more than that. So you took everything." "I took my freedom. Everything else was just consequence." Damien's eyes were wet now. "I tried to kill you. You know that, right? In the garden. I would have done it if Warren hadn't stopped me. I would have murdered my wife rather than face prison." "I know. Doesn't that scare you? Doesn't that make you wonder what you turned me into?" "No. Because I didn't turn you into anything. You were always capable of this. You were always someone who prioritized yourself over everything else. I just made you desperate enough to show it." "So what now? You testify. I go to prison for 20 years. You get your revenge and move on?" "There is no moving on. There's just forward. And yes, I'll testify. And yes, you'll go to prison. Because you're guilty, Damien. Not just of money laundering, of trying to kill me, of being someone who chose murder over accountability. Damien was crying now, tears running down his unshaven face. "I'm sorry. I know it doesn't mean anything. I know it's too late, but I'm sorry." Serena felt nothing looking at him, no satisfaction, no grief, no anger. Just the empty clarity of someone who'd burned down their whole life and was standing in the ashes examining what remained. "I forgive you," she said. Damien's head snapped up. "What?" "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. Not because it makes what you did okay. But because I'm tired of carrying hatred around like luggage. So I'm setting it down. I forgive you for the affair, for calling me decorative, for 7 years of invisibility, for trying to kill me. But you'll still testify." "Yes." "Because forgiveness doesn't mean there are no consequences. It just means I'm not going to let what you did define the rest of my life." "That's not forgiveness. That's just—" He struggled for words. "Coldness." "Maybe. Or maybe it's the only kind of forgiveness people like us can manage." Serena stood up. "Goodbye, Damien." "Wait." He reached for her, chains stopping him short. "That's it? After everything, you just walk away?" "That's what I've been trying to do for months. You're just finally noticing." She walked to the door. The guard opened it. "Serena." Damien's voice cracked. "Please, don't leave like this. Give me something, anything." She turned back, looked at the man she'd married, the man who'd made her invisible, the man who'd tried to murder her rather than see her clearly. "Your middle name," she said. "It's Alexander. You told me once during our honeymoon. I remembered because you said it was your grandfather's name and you'd always loved it. You never asked me mine, but I remembered yours." She walked out. Behind her, Damien was sobbing, but Serena didn't look back. The next 2 months moved like water through her hands, fast and impossible to hold. The federal trials started. Damien pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty for attempted murder, accepting a sentence of 35 years. His attorneys tried to argue diminished capacity, mental breakdown, anything that would reduce time. Nothing worked. The recorded attempt on Serena's life was too clear, too premeditated. He was transferred to a maximum security facility in Pennsylvania. Serena never visited again. Nikolai's trial was more complicated. His attorneys were better. The evidence was more circumstantial. And Serena's testimony, shaped carefully by Vivian and delivered with surgical precision, emphasized that Nikolai had helped her expose legitimate crimes rather than actively participating in them. The jury deadlocked twice. Eventually, prosecutors offered a deal: 10 years, eligible for parole in 5, in exchange for guilty pleas on money laundering and racketeering charges. Nikolai accepted. Before he was taken into custody, he sent Serena a letter. She opened it in her hotel room. She was still living in hotels, hadn't found anywhere that felt permanent enough to call home. The letter was short, written in Nikolai's precise handwriting. "Serena, you testified honestly. I respect that, even though it cost me. What you said about me helping you expose crimes rather than committing them with you was generous. Also technically accurate, which is the best kind of generous. 10 years is manageable. I'll read. Get healthy. Come out younger than I went in, metaphorically speaking. When I do, you should call me. Not because you owe me, not because of what happened, but because you're the most interesting person I've met in 20 years, and I'm curious what you'll become. The offer I made, about joining the organization, about having a future after this, it still stands. Think about it while I'm gone. Stay dangerous. N." Serena read it twice, then burned it in the hotel sink. She didn't need Nikolai's future. She needed to build her own. Celeste Arden cooperated fully with prosecutors and received immunity. She left New York quietly, changed her name, and disappeared into a life Serena hoped was happier than the one she'd left behind. They never spoke. Some conversations didn't need to happen. Vivian Thorne became something like a friend, though neither of them would have used that word. They had dinner once a month, compared notes on surviving in industries designed to destroy women who fought back, and occasionally got drunk enough to laugh about things that weren't funny. At one of these dinners, Vivian asked the question Serena had been avoiding. "What are you going to do now? The trials are over. You're legally single. You have immunity for your cooperation. What comes next?" Serena looked out the restaurant window at Manhattan moving past. People living lives that didn't involve federal trials or destroyed marriages or learning to become someone new. I don't know, she said honestly. You could write a book. Everyone wants to hear your story. I don't want to profit from this. Then what? Therapy? Travel? Join a convent? Serena laughed. I'm pretty sure I'm not convent material. Fair. Vivian sipped her wine. But you need something. You can't just exist in hotels forever, waiting for permission to have a life again. I'm not waiting for permission. Then what are you waiting for? Serena didn't have an answer, or rather, she had too many answers and none of them felt true. She was waiting to stop feeling like a ghost, waiting to figure out who Serena Hale was when she wasn't destroying Damien Vale, or testifying in court, or performing for cameras, waiting to find something that felt real and permanent in hers. But waiting was what got her into this mess in the first place. 7 years of waiting for Damien to see her, waiting for something to change, waiting for a life that never materialized because she'd been too afraid to demand it. Serena set down her wine glass. I'm done waiting, she said. 3 weeks later, Serena walked into a brownstone in Brooklyn that was for sale. 3 floors, original hardwood, a backyard that was mostly weeds but had potential, light streaming through windows that hadn't been cleaned in years. It was perfect, not because it was beautiful or prestigious or the kind of place that would impress anyone, but because it was hers. Serena bought it with money from a trust fund her mother had left her, money she'd never touched because Damien's wealth had made it unnecessary, money that had sat in an account for 7 years waiting for her to need it. She spent 6 months renovating, ripping up carpet, painting walls, learning to use power tools from YouTube videos, getting blisters and paint in her hair and discovering that physical exhaustion felt better than the mental exhaustion of being invisible. When the house was finished, Serena stood in the living room surrounded by furniture she'd chosen herself and thought, this is home. Not the mansion on Wintermere Drive with its Italian marble and imported fixtures and rooms designed for performance. This broken-down brownstone in Brooklyn that she'd rebuilt with her own hands. On a Tuesday afternoon in June, 2 years after everything had ended, Serena was in her backyard pulling weeds when someone knocked on her front door. She almost didn't answer, was covered in dirt, wearing ratty clothes, not in the mood for conversation. But the knocking persisted. Serena walked through her house, she still marveled at that, and opened the door. A young woman stood on the steps, mid-20s, nervous energy, holding a folder like it contained something precious. I'm sorry to bother you, the woman said. Are you Serena Hale? Yes. My name is Rebecca. I saw your press conference, the one you gave 2 years ago. I've watched it probably 50 times. She laughed nervously. I know that sounds crazy. It doesn't, Serena said gently. I'm in a situation with my husband. He's not violent or anything, but he doesn't see me. He treats me like I'm furniture. And I've been living like that for 4 years, and I thought I was crazy until I heard you talk about being invisible, and I realized that's me. That's what I am. Serena's chest tightened. What do you need? She asked. I don't know. Maybe nothing. I just wanted to meet you, to see that you're real, that it's possible to... Rebecca's voice cracked. To become someone else. Someone who exists. Serena looked at this young woman standing on her doorstep, carrying the same weight she'd carried for 7 years, and felt something shift inside her. Not closure. Nothing that simple. But purpose. Maybe. Direction. Come in, she said. Let's talk. They sat in Serena's kitchen drinking coffee while Rebecca told her story. Different details, same architecture. A husband who provided everything except being seen. Years of shrinking herself into silence. The slow death of living beside someone who'd stopped noticing she was alive. What did you do? Rebecca asked. How did you become someone else? Serena thought about that question. About standing barefoot on Italian marble, holding a phone full of betrayals. About meeting with federal investigators and criminals and attorneys who specialized in destruction. About testifying in court and giving a press conference and watching her entire life collapse into ash. About all the terrible things she'd done to stop being invisible. I made a choice, Serena said carefully. To stop accepting invisibility as my default state. To demand being seen even if it meant destroying everything. But Rebecca, she leaned forward. You don't have to do what I did. You don't have to partner with criminals or break laws or burn down your whole life. You just have to decide that you matter, that your existence is not negotiable, and then you have to act like someone who believes that. How? Differently for everyone. Maybe it's therapy. Maybe it's divorce. Maybe it's just saying no to something you've always said yes to. The method doesn't matter. The decision does. Rebecca was crying now. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You are. You walked through this city to find a stranger's house because you couldn't stand being invisible anymore. That took strength. Everything else is just logistics. They talked for 3 hours. When Rebecca left, Serena gave her Vivian's card and the name of a therapist who specialized in helping women leave marriages that had died years before anyone admitted it. Then Serena sat in her kitchen watching afternoon light move across walls she'd painted herself and realized something that made her smile. This was what came next. Not running, not hiding, not building another life as someone's accessory, but this. Helping women who carried the same weight she'd carried. Women who'd spent years being invisible and were finally ready to be seen. Over the next year, Rebecca wasn't the only one who showed up at Serena's door. They came in ones and twos. Young and old, rich and struggling, women who'd seen the press conference or read articles or heard about Serena Hale through networks that existed in the spaces between official structures. Serena started meeting them at coffee shops instead of her house. Boundaries, her therapist emphasized, were important. She connected them with attorneys, therapists, financial advisors who specialized in helping women navigate divorce. Sometimes she just listened while they talked, offering the gift of being seen by someone who understood invisibility intimately. And slowly, carefully, Serena built something that looked like purpose. She started a foundation, small at first, funded by the trust from her mother and donations from women who'd survived similar stories. The foundation didn't have a clever name, just the Serena Hale Foundation for Women Escaping Financial Control and Domestic Invisibility. It provided legal support, financial literacy training, emergency funds, and something more valuable than any of those things. A network of women who understood what it meant to disappear inside a marriage and fight their way back to existing. The foundation grew slowly, steadily. Within 3 years, they'd helped 200 women leave marriages that had stopped being real. Some divorces were quiet, some were spectacular, none were easy, but all of them ended with women who'd been invisible finally being seen. On a cold November evening, 5 years after the press conference, Serena was working late in the foundation's office, a converted storefront in downtown Brooklyn, when someone knocked on the window. She looked up. A man stood outside, older than she remembered. Gray hair, weathered face, Nikolai. Serena's breath caught. She walked to the door, unlocked it, let him in. "Hello, Serena," he said. "You're out early. Good behavior. Also, I have excellent lawyers." He looked around the office. Desks, filing cabinets, photographs on the wall of women who'd graduated the program. "This is what you built." "Yes." "It's good. Better than joining my organization would have been." "I know." Nikolai smiled, that thin, dangerous smile she remembered. But it was softer now. Worn down by 5 years in prison, maybe. Or just time. "I didn't come to recruit you," he said. "I came to say thank you for testifying against you. For being honest. Most people in your position would have lied to save themselves. You didn't. That cost me, but I respected it." He pulled an envelope from his coat. "This is information about offshore accounts tied to domestic abuse networks. Money being moved to fund operations that trap women in countries where they have no legal recourse. I thought your foundation might want it." Serena took the envelope carefully. "Why are you giving me this?" "Because you're doing something that matters, and because I'm tired of being someone who only destroys things." Nikolai moved toward the door. "I won't contact you again. This is goodbye." "Wait." Serena stopped him. "What will you do now?" "Disappear. Retire. Become someone boring who runs a shipping company and doesn't launder money for international crime syndicates." He paused. "You were right, about forgiveness not meaning no consequences. I'm living those consequences, but I'm also living, which is more than I deserve. We all deserve a chance to become something else. Even people like me. Especially people like you, The ones who think it's too late. Nikolai looked at her for a long moment, something complicated moving through his expression. You became someone extraordinary, he said quietly. Damien Vale was an idiot for not seeing it. Then he walked out into the November night and disappeared into a city that had swallowed better people than him. Serena never saw him again. But 6 months later, the foundation received an anonymous donation of $5 million, routed through so many shell corporations that tracing it was impossible. The donation note said only, "For the invisible ones." Serena used it to expand the foundation to 3 more cities. 10 years after the press conference, a journalist contacted Serena about doing an interview. Not about Damien, not about the scandal, about the foundation and what came after. Serena agreed. They met at a coffee shop near Serena's house. The journalist was young, nervous, clearly expecting someone harder than the woman who showed up wearing jeans and a sweater, gray streaking through her hair, laugh lines around her eyes. "You look different than I expected," the journalist said. "How so?" "Happier. The press conference. You looked so cold, determined, like you'd burned everything down and were standing in the ashes." "I was," Serena said. "That's what that moment required. And now? Now I'm someone else. Someone who learned that you can burn down your life and still build something new from what's left." They talked for 2 hours about the foundation, about the women they'd helped, about what it meant to survive invisibility and come out the other side. Near the end, the journalist asked the question Serena had been expecting. "Do you regret it? Everything you did to expose Damien, the laws you broke, the people you hurt, the way you destroyed your husband's life?" Serena thought about that question carefully, about standing in that mansion on Wintermere Drive, unlocking a phone that didn't belong to her, about partnering with criminals and lying to investigators, and spending months becoming someone cold enough to do terrible things for freedom, about the press conference where she'd told the truth to millions of people and felt nothing except relief that she was finally visible, about everything she'd lost and everything she'd gained, and whether the math added up to something resembling justice. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret it. I regret that it took me 7 years to become someone who could demand to be seen. I regret the damage that created. But the choice itself? The decision to stop being invisible? No. That I'd do again. Even though your husband tried to kill you? Especially because he tried to kill me. Because that proved I was right. That invisibility was dangerous. That staying quiet was slowly erasing me. And that becoming someone else, someone capable of fighting back, was the only option that ended with me still existing." The interview was published 2 weeks later. It went viral again. Not as big as the press conference, but enough that Serena's phone exploded with interview requests and speaking invitations and women reaching out for help. She ignored most of it, answered some of it, and kept doing the work that mattered, helping women who carried the weight she'd carried learn to set it down. On a Tuesday evening in October, 15 years after she'd unlocked Damien's phone and chosen to stop being invisible, Serena sat in her backyard watching autumn happen. The brownstone had aged well. She'd maintained it carefully, fixed things when they broke, painted when colors faded. It looked lived in now, real. Her phone buzzed. Message from an unknown number. "This is Rebecca, the woman you met 10 years ago when I showed up at your door. I just wanted to say thank you. I left my husband that year, got therapy, went back to school. I'm a social worker now, helping women in domestic situations. And I just bought my first house. Wanted you to know that your story gave me permission to have my own." Serena read the message twice, her throat tight. Then she replied, "Proud of you. Keep building." She set down the phone and looked at her backyard. The garden she'd planted, the fence she'd repaired, the life she'd built from rubble. This was what winning looked like. Not the press conference, not the federal trials, not watching Damien get led away in handcuffs or Nikolai accepting a prison sentence. This. A quiet Tuesday evening in October, sitting in a backyard she'd earned, knowing that somewhere in the world, women who'd been invisible were learning to take up space. Serena thought about the woman she'd been 15 years ago, standing on Italian marble, holding a phone full of betrayals, making a decision that would destroy everything. She wondered what that woman would think of who she'd become. Not perfect, not innocent, not even particularly good, just free. And helping other women find the same freedom. That seemed like enough. Maybe it was even something better than enough. Maybe it was the truest version of justice anyone like her could hope for. Serena finished her coffee as the sun set over Brooklyn, painting the sky in shades of fire and ash, and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not happiness exactly, but peace. The kind that comes from knowing you fought for yourself and survived. The kind that comes from becoming someone who exists loudly enough that nobody could ever call you decorative again. The kind that comes from learning that sometimes the only way to be seen is to burn down everything that kept you invisible and build something new from the flames. Serena Hale had burned down her life, and from the ashes she'd built something better. Not for Damien, not for revenge, not for anyone except herself. And that was enough. More than enough. That was everything.